YouTube. What's good? Welcome to another episode of Wanted, the voice within organized chaos. Episode 6, people. Episode 6. The title count's growing. This one's titled Abusive Healthy Relationships. I know people looked at that title side-eyed like, what the hell is Identity doing now? But part of what I do is I like to make people think about what's going on, pay closer attention to things, and kind of do it how I do it, just because I want somebody to share the pain that I go through, seeing certain things a certain way. So, and if I'm wrong, check me on it. I'm okay with that. I'm just sharing my experiences. That's all. That's all I can do for y'all. So,
Thank you, everyone who's who actually showed up on time. A lot of people rolling a little later. Let me see who actually came through the door. I know I saw defrauding charlatans. I appreciate you, bro. I know your day is busy. Thursday afternoons are not really that wide open for you, but I appreciate you just taking the time, even if you're riding a bike. It's all good. Who else? I see KK DeJour, my twin. What's good? You know we can't exist at the same time, man. Something in the universe is going to collapse if we exist at the same time. Either that or somebody's a damn liar. I'm just saying. The Al Show, you're back again, man. I think you like my show. I really do think you like my show. That's cool. I have no problem with it. Appreciate you even being here. Who else? I think I did see one of the lovely ladies, Mrs. VSN CO9. I see you. Thank you again for rocking with your boy. I appreciate it. And I got Honeybee in the house. Hey, Honeybee. We missed you. Don't know where you been, but I haven't seen you around. Appreciate you coming, checking me out. Appreciate it. All right. I think I got everybody in the chat. So, I think I dropped the link already. You know how I do. I like having conversations like if I walk in the door and you're sitting on the couch and we just get into it. So I think I already did it, but I'll do it again just because it's all good. So, do I want to? Yes, I want to open up with a quote of the day. And I do have a quote of the day. Let me get to it. Let me see if I can get to it. Here we go. Quote of the day is from Bob Marley. So, Mr. Bob Marley, I think most of us should know who he is. Jamaican singer, songwriter, musician, ambassador for reggae music. Just pretty much an icon. The guy's a legend. And I say that emphatically because one of the greatest albums ever in existence is an album that's, I think, almost 40 years old, 37 years old. Bottom left there, legend. If you have not heard that album, you have to have that as part of your reggae classics. It has to be part of your music collection. So his quote is, "Truth is, everybody's going to hurt you. You just got to find the ones worth suffering for." Now that may not make any sense right now, but it will with the title of this show. But again, if you don't have that album, go check out that album. Of course, I'm going to be talking about relationships. People talk about relationships all the time. I know. But how are they abusive and healthy? Let's figure that out. But before we do, of course, we definitely have to create boundaries on our lane because relationships, they span so many different avenues. We can't cover them all. We can only go with what we have. So I'm going to define two terms here that should kind of narrow down what I'm actually looking to do here. One is the word abuse. Now that word is, I think that's a pretty popular word, especially if you're suffering from it. And hold up, I think I have somebody coming in. Of course. Who else other than Mr. Lanier? Who else? Man, you are popular in these streets, man.
How are you, Identity? Nice to be back.
I am good, man. I am good. I'm hanging in there, just trying to stay relevant.
Okay. I have to say, like, I've been on the show before, as you are well aware, but this title alone, I said, I got to tune in and see what this is about. The title alone has to be one of the best you've come up with. Because
I'm trying, man.
Like I said So let me just address the title so that I'm on sure ground here. And
do you want me to define? I'll define the lane first, and then it'll be more appropriate for you to
right. Go ahead.
narrow in your thoughts.
Okay.
So, hey, Al, we did this dance last time.
Yeah, but
okay.
in this case, you gotta define it, because we don't want to go off on tangents, particularly with this one.
I know. And for me, I do that. I do these rabbit holes just naturally, and I have to wrangle in myself sometimes. So the first term I want to define is, what actually am I talking about as far as abuse? Anything intentionally harmful or that injures others. I'm not focusing on the obvious. And that'll be more explained in detail later, but I'm definitely not focusing just on the obvious. But I think abuse, I think we can all agree what that looks like, what that is. I don't think we need to really kind of cover that at this very moment. But another word I want to make sure we understand what lane I'm in is relationship. The way in which two or more concepts, objects, or people are connected. Specifically, I'm talking about people. For this discussion, the focus is relationship between people. And that could be romantic, that could be family, that could be, so that's the lane I'm going. I mean, we could go other avenues, but like I said, I want to lock that down. So are you on board so far?
Oh yeah, because the relationship part was the one I wanted to, because I didn't know if it was just romantic relationships or other kinds of relationships. And it's across the board that will work. So I wanted to start out by asking you a couple questions. Is that okay with you?
Sure. Let me look and see who else is showing up in the chat real quick, since I know you're on the panel. Honeybee, hey, how you doing? I see you still there. Someone else came in. Limitless Jones. Wow. Haven't seen that name, I don't think, on this show, but appreciate you being here.
Never heard of that.
Brian Dennis, of course, we have
name.
history. What's good? What is good? All right.
So here, go ahead.
Yeah. So if you have questions, go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to start it off by asking a question that you.
You're breaking up there, Al. You're breaking up there. You're breaking up. You might want to get in a good spot. While you're doing that, hey, Karma 52. What's good? Unadulterated truth is here. Love it. Love it. It's good, bro. All right. So, are you there?
Is this better?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Hello. Okay, great. So let me just ask you a couple questions, sort of kickstart this. The first question I have for you is,
you have 2 minutes out.
Okay, that's why I'm trying to get them off. Number one, have you ever been in an abusive relationship of any kind? And number two, what do you believe that people in any kind of relationship, romantic or otherwise, can be in both an abusive and healthy relationship at the same time? So those are the two questions.
So what you're asking me is, why the hell did I title my show the way I did? Pretty much. The first question, yes, I have. Excuse me. Okay. Yes, I have. Unfortunately. The second question, you're gonna find that out as we go.
Okay. I figured you'd say that. I figured. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm not blowing smoke out my ass here. I have seen a thing or two.
No, I'm sure. As have I. Yeah. That's why I'm here talking about that. So just let me define the parameters from my perspective so that we have an understanding. I'm viewing this from someone who is a single guy, but who has observed relationships, obviously of various types, especially romantic relationships of other people. And so that's the perspective that I'm coming from. Like, my view of it, based on my experience, not only talking with people who've been in relationships, because sometimes people have talked to me about their relationships, but in viewing relationships sometimes up close. So that's my perspective, just so that you have an understanding of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Defrauding is on the
Hey,
panel.
Yo, what's up, Al? And what's up, Identity Withheld? Good to hear
What's
from y'all.
good, man? What's
Um,
good? Did you check out the opening or anything you need me to cover?
yeah, I checked out the opening, heard everything that's happened so far. Don't need you to cover anything. I heard it all.
Sweet.
Just wanted to say, y'all feeling good. That's it.
Oh, you cut out.
Oh, I cut out?
oh, oh,
Yeah. You still there?
Hey, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. I was just trying to see if y'all doing okay and everything else like that.
Yeah, man. I'm doing well, man. Just living life. Still trying to figure out, how far I'm gonna take this show.
I feel you on that.
Yeah, yeah. How's your world?
Oh man, it's going lovely, man. It's actually popping off real good right now. But
Okay, you're doing some things on Instagram, I believe, right?
oh yeah, doing a whole lot on there. I would say the hardest part of what I'm doing is the learning curve in between drawing and writing. There's a whole lot of learning curve, a lot of templates that I have to create, so I don't have to constantly reformat again and again and again. So creating the blueprint for the wheel, so I never have to do that again.
Nice, nice. Well, welcome again, man. I appreciate it. I don't know,
Thanks.
Al. You want to tell defrauding how you're doing?
oh, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. I'm just having my coffee right now, and so all is right with the world at this very moment, at least for
That's
me.
what's up.
Nice, nice. So I see
Mhm.
Jackie Chambers. Oh man, she's in the chat. Nice. Only you will understand this, Jackie. Chuckle, 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 chuckle. That's between Jackie and I. um, Too big for skinny jeans. What's good, man? What's good? How's the missus? I haven't heard her voice in a while either. Although I haven't been on these streets long, or as much as I used to be. So it may just be I'm missing her. Uh, YM's in the house. Nice, nice. I guess Karma 52. Hey, whenever you want to join, you can join. Um, please don't hold any panelists against me. I like being fair across the board, and I'm more interested in conversation than critique at this moment. Um, so let me get back into it. So I did
Mhm.
define the terms or the boundaries, as I'm calling them. Abuse, the lane that I'm going with that, in relationship, mainly romantic, family, things like that, not work related, anything like that. So there's two more terms that I have to definitely lock down. One is repression, unconscious blocking of unpleasant emotions, impulses, memories, and thoughts from your conscious mind. I'm not going to go too deep on that because I really can't, but I do know at least what the word means. It's also known as dissociative amnesia. And as an example, it's someone who does not recall the abuse suffered in their early childhood. So that's a thing. I've seen quite a few documentaries where that happened, where people started remembering things in their 40s, what happened to them when they were in like 6 years old. Um, so that's a thing. And another word is suppression. So we got repression and suppression. Now, suppression is deliberately trying to forget it. So it's entirely voluntary. And examples would be avoiding thoughts of enjoying that piece of cake when you know you probably shouldn't have it if you're trying to lose weight or whatever else. And another example would be avoiding those thoughts of an attractive coworker. Suppression. It's a tough one. How do you guys feel about those definitions?
I feel like those definitions are like right on point. Right on point.
Now, do you know, or I don't know if you want to divulge whether you've experienced some of these, but I only know of repression through a lot of documentaries where it made me pay attention to the word, because
Right.
I couldn't fathom that even existed, and it was because I don't know that experience, so that's why it threw me off when I first heard the word. So, what do you
Right.
guys know about the words?
I know a little bit about it from school, or should I say, I'm saying I know an intermediate amount of information about repression and suppression from school. A lot of people basically that I've come in contact with in these psychology classes, all of my professors have talked on these subjects, and they said normally people that experience repression are normally intelligent people. They are so intelligent that their defense mechanism against the trauma that's happened in their life is to actually put it into a mode of repression, help them forget it so they can deal with their trauma and move past it, and they can continue to function. And then when it comes to suppression, I think every last one of us experience that every day, like you said, like not eating that piece of cake or not remembering those emotions that you get when you eat the cake, suppression of any kind of bad thoughts, but it can also be suppression of good thoughts as well. So I'm pretty familiar with those two.
Nice, nice.
I would
Al?
say, yeah, I would say that I'm more familiar with the terms in terms of politics than I am psychoanalytically or in terms of psychology. So suppression and repression are more political terms in my, not only my linguistic methodology, but also in my frame of reference normally. I've heard the terms used in terms of individual psychology of individuals. Personally, I've never given much thought to it, other than people do suppress and they repress aspects of their personality and their past and actions. So I get the relevance in regards to psychology, individual psychology, and individual personality. I'm not as familiar with it in that context that I am from a political context. So,
Okay. Okay. So yeah, these terms are going to definitely pop up every now and again. Because like I said, I think what surprised me was just its existence in our everyday life that we sometimes don't even really pay attention to, or we ignore it. So that's why I figured it was a great topic. So where is this going? So let me give an example of the platform I'm going to stand on with those terms in hand. As an example, I want to look at unemployment. So I'm sure that some of you know there is an accepted level of unemployment that keeps the economy stable, correct? Do you guys understand it to that level?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
it's how the American economy functions partly, and I think some
Yes.
other economies.
Yes. Now, in one extreme case of instability, 100% unemployment, 100% unemployment indicates there are no jobs available. So the resources are scarce and the economy has officially failed. So on the other extreme, 0% unemployment indicates there aren't enough people to man the jobs or will man the jobs. There will be jobs left unattended, unfilled, which can put the economy in a state of collapse as well. Therefore, there is an accepted level of unemployment that keeps this economy stable. Are you guys with me so far?
I
Yes,
have an
sir.
idea where
Definitely.
you're going, but I'm
Okay.
interested in
Okay.
hearing more.
Okay. Cool. So, similar to that rate of unemployment, there does exist a level of toxicity or abuse within a harmonious union. Not necessarily because of deliberate and or malicious intent. No. But because we're human. We're not perfect beings. We have a past, we have a history, we have baggage. And even if we're in denial, all of these things exist. So in reality, there is an abusive thread within any relationship, be it perpetrated or self inflicted. In essence, there is an allowable amount of relational abuse to sustain a healthy relationship. Did I lose you guys so far?
Nope, I'm definitely with
No,
you.
Okay.
no, you didn't.
Okay. How are you guys in the chat? Hopefully I'm making sense here. It did make sense in my head when I was going over it. So just trying to make sure I don't lose anybody on my train of thought here. All right. So let's dig a little deeper. Just a little deeper. So I'm not speaking of the well-documented abusive categories that have no place in a healthy relationship. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, mental, all of the above. None of those I'm speaking of. I'm speaking more on the lines of self-inflicted abuse. We call them sacrifices. And we sacrifice to keep our loved ones happy every single day. One, it's one that we've accepted as a cultural norm. Neglect of ourselves, being as parents, we'll go hungry just to make sure our kids are fed. That's an expectation. That's a cultural expectation of a parent, typical. But that is a level of self-inflicted abuse. That's neglecting yourself for the greater good, right? On the flip side of that, when a woman's pregnant, that unborn child takes all it needs from its mother's body, even if the nutrient levels are extremely low. That baby will still need what it needs to grow, and it's not malicious, but it is natural. That's just a natural response of the body. Sleep deprivation for anybody working 3 jobs just to maintain a family. I've seen that all my life. Growing up with just seeing, my parents, my mom working 2 jobs, my dad working 2 jobs. I've seen that, and that was just to break even. That's not even living in the lap of luxury. That's just to break even. So, are we good with that? Do you guys have any comments on what I'm defining as
Well, what I find interesting are the kind of examples you bring up. And I just wanted to actually kind of make a point here. I'll just address one kind of aspect of a relationship and one aspect here. And this may be controversial, I understand. But hey, it's a conversation, sometimes controversy.
That's why we're here.
Right. So let me just take my view of this, let me be specific, the marital relationship, because you brought up certain aspects within families and relating, I think, to marriage to a certain extent, married people to an extent. My stance has always been that I, as an individual, as a single guy, as a bachelor, I don't believe in marriage, never have. And I am not a proponent of marital relationships. And part of the reason that I'm not stems from a point that you brought up. And it's not something I entirely consciously think about, but it's unconsciously. That is, within any relationship, there is the possibility of some, not so much abuse, but some dysfunction, I would argue. The relationship can fall apart. And so one of my critiques of marriage is actually, from my standpoint, is that marriage itself is not really about relationships. This is my argument. Marriage, as I have seen it in my reading about it and as in my research on it, marriage is primarily a financial and economic institution and a legal status in this country. It was tied to procreation, but it's no longer that case today in this country, at least. I mean, you can have families and not be married. You can have kids and not be married. And there's not necessarily a societal shame or stigma to that. But my point about marriage itself is that it's fundamentally a financial and economic institution and legal status. And what I think a lot of people don't understand about it is you bring the relationship to the marriage. The marriage institution is a blank slate. So you bring a relationship to it. So your relationship, from dating, from courtship or whatever you call it, and then being a fiance, what have you, is brought to the marriage, and it either survives or thrives or deteriorates or utterly fails based on how things work. So, and thus, as I see it, outright abuse that you mentioned before can be a part of this, and often is. But I think it's also the basic possibility of some sort of toxicity or dysfunctionality within a relationship. That's a specific relationship. So that's one of the reasons for me. It's not the reason, but it's one of the reasons why I've never been a fan of marriage to begin with, and never believed in it fundamentally. Because I think there is that possibility, not just for dysfunctionality and failure, but also for abuse of various types, including some of the others that you've mentioned.
Well, I definitely want to be careful. I made the statement that I want to stay away from the obvious ones, because those are, I think those really don't need a lot of discussion. I'm not even speaking of them being, I'm saying they shouldn't be part of a healthy relationship. Those specifically, the physical and all those things. This is going one level down. This one's going beyond just the obvious. These are the ones we hide behind the word sacrifice. It's hidden, some of these are hidden because we use certain words that we've grown accustomed to just saying, well, it's just what you're supposed to do. But that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist or it doesn't have an effect. So that's what I wanted to.
That's why I used the term dysfunctionality. I didn't want to go with the obvious. I just wanted to say dysfunctionality because I thought that would work out a lot better, and go more to the points that you made, the certain kinds of abuse that you talked about.
Yeah.
And that relationships can fail for various reasons. The more obvious reasons are the more obvious ones that we know. But there are also not so obvious reasons why relationships can be dysfunctional, can fail because they're dysfunctional in other ways. Like you said, people bring baggage. And I think that's a very good point. They themselves have personalities and issues and aspects to them that don't compute, that don't dovetail with the other person they're in, although it seems like it does. And that leads to eventually dysfunctionality and thus the failure of said relationship.
Yeah, I definitely want to focus more on the outer bounds of those obvious ones. So I don't know. I like a level of instability in my conversations that they could either fall, they can collapse or they can conform to make a great topic. So, sorry, defrauding. Did you have anything?
I don't know if I necessarily agree with Al on this one. And one of the reasons that I would say that, or one of the main points that I have to drive home here is per the parameters of the definition that you laid out, with any given relationship period, right? This means a friendship, this means a work relationship in between two people. This could even go into something as complex as business. I think that as long as you are a human being, a social person, meeting with another human being that's a social person, the relationship is always there. You bring a relationship to every single place you go to. It's not just the people bring the relationship to a marriage. They bring a relationship to work. They bring a relationship to a marriage, to an educational institution. They bring a relationship to a jailhouse, anything you can think of. As long as you are a human being that are interacting with another human being, you are bringing a relationship. And in every situation, personal psychology for every person, you bring your psychological aspects to a sociological level, because then you take that psychology of yourself and you put it into a whole sociological aspect where they're studying the whole behavior of that entire group. But that entire group is made up of personalities. So one of the things that I would say is that I believe that it is inevitable for you to be able to try and say that I will not get into a relationship or I will avoid relationship or that relationships are only just solely brought by the person. The relationship will always exist unless you remove yourself away from society, you remove yourself away from every other person. But you want to know something that's interesting about that? Even when you remove yourself from the situation, you remove yourself from other people, as long as the other people exist, there's a relationship even in that. The relationship in that is the fact that you are neglecting, you are moving yourself out. So the idea is that as long as people exist, as long as there's people on planet Earth, there will always be a form of relationships. And that is the grounds that I don't agree with his statement on so much. And I believe that this is one of the reasons why things in studies like psychology and sociology are so important, because we would know that even within business, which is I could have a partner that has a limited partnership with my company, I still have a relationship with that person. And that relationship can also have neglect, it can have abuse, it can have different things going on within that relationship that all depend on how I interact with this other person or how I interact with this other company. And that's what I would say to that.
Yeah, that's a great point to make. That we are in relationships even when we don't want to be in said relationships. When if someone asks me, "Hey, how's your," I'm just making an example, "How's your sister doing?" and I say, "Well, I don't talk to her." That's the relationship. That it's still a
Exactly.
relationship, even though I don't talk to her, I don't call her.
Mhm.
This is not true in real life. I'm just using an example, but what it's saying is there's still a relationship, even though that it's not a positive one. It's still a relationship. We have them regardless, regardless. So
Well, I'd like to respond, if I may.
sure.
The point that I was making was actually a more specific example. So that's why I noted that it was very specific, because I wouldn't disagree that there are many different types of relationships. In fact, that's why I specifically stated that this is a very specific type of relationship I'm talking about, because we're looking at a panoply, a plethora of types of relationships. So I would agree with defrauding charlatan, of course. There are many different types of relationships. I just cited one, but getting to what he talked about different kinds of relationships, let me just again view things from my perspective, to be honest, because like anything, when it comes to other people's relationships, I'm objective. But when it comes to mine, obviously, I'm subjective. That's a big difference. But I would say, in regards to me, I would agree there are many different types of relationships. What I found in my life is that I tend to kind of sort of carefully have relationships of the type that you're noting, many different types of relationships that work for me. In other words, if you're dealing with somebody on a business level, or you're dealing with friends, or you're dealing with other types of people, I have tended in my life to, I think, scrutinize and to make sure that the relationships are functional and feasible for me. That's my perspective. So the way that I look at relationships is not only A, is this working for me as an individual, but B, does this work for both of us? Is this feasible for both of us in terms of every kind of relationship? And business, of course, would be especially the case, because if one aspect of a business relationship doesn't work but another one does, then it's an unequal relationship, and it's an ineffective one. So from my perspective, the way that I view other types of relationships is I try to scrutinize them. And again, I try to extricate myself from relationships that really not only are dysfunctional, which is blatant, but don't seem to work, that don't seem to be getting off the ground. That's always been my standpoint. And that's been my point of view. That's the prism through which I look at. And it's also the prism through which I view, more specifically, romantic relationships with other people when I've talked to them about it. Because my viewpoint is, well, if you see this sign And if you see this indication and you see that aspect, what was your reason for continuing to go on with the relationship? That's how I look at it. And so I'm always interested in what the answer to that is. Because from my view, I, again, try to scrutinize any kind of relationship I'm in, any type of relationship. That's just my point of view. That's just me.
I would suggest every relationship you keep an eye on. They all have a certain service in your life. But for today, I'm going to do my best to stay in this lane of just dealing with the levels that I spoke of earlier. I think YM actually made a good suggestion of me maybe having a slide or something showing what I'm talking about, because I'm throwing terms. And trust me, I thought about it, but I don't have the time to create everything in 1 week. So these things are coming slowly. So every week you should see something new that either I worked on or, I'm trying to get like a more of a base to my flow here. So I hear you, YM. Appreciate the comment. And Desert Woman, I see in the chat. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear, about your friend getting COVID. I didn't know you could get COVID twice. I had no clue. Well, I didn't even know that was a thing. I thought, like, once you got it, there was some level of not protection, but okay, you should be okay now. You might be damaged from it, but so that's news to me. Ooh, that makes it even worse for me. Sorry. Defrauding, did you have anything else before I wanted to go move to the next point?
The only thing I wanted is that could you redefine the specific focus really quick for me?
Yes, sir. So I opened up with what abuse is, which I don't think I need to redefine that. That's pretty obvious. There's so many levels to that, but just abuse in itself, harming someone, something, but more specifically, relationships between people, not concepts, objects, just relationship between people, relationship, speaking of romantic or family, not business relationships like that. I'm not covering here because I can't cover all of them. And then I dug into the repression and suppression and how that affects everyday life. And the only difference between those two, one's involuntary and one's not. that was the reason why I pulled those two words into the conversation.
Okay, perfect.
Does that help?
Yes, that helps tremendously.
Okay. So I did talk about neglecting oneself for sacrificing yourself for the greater good. I spoke of parents going hungry to make sure the kids eat. That's self-neglect. I mean, that it is what it is. It's sacrifice, but it's for the greater good. And that's obviously not the same type of abuse that, someone smacking you upside the head. That's not the same thing. So my next level down, suppression of desires. Now, this one's more romantic, but that one's a big one. And this is the one that actually had me thinking about talking about this. Those same desires that attracted you to your partner. Is it possible to turn those desires off once you enter a committed relationship? And I'm not talking about suppressing them. I'm talking about turning them off.
See, I believe for that one, that's a 50-50. And the reason why I say that is because during the initial phase of when you're falling in love with a person and you're getting to the point as to where everything that you do is like starting to revolve around that person and everything is brand new to you at that particular point in time, I think naturally it goes into a state of you turn everybody else off normally if it's working out well. You turn everybody else off, all those feelings and all those emotions are hardwired towards that person. However, I think that after a while, as it grows old and as things start to lose its initial zest, I think that's when all of a sudden you get back into a situation as to where you start to make these choices to suppress instead of it being a state of repression.
Nice. I like the way you tied that in there. Sweet. All right. Are you following now? Are you good with that?
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm following. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, in terms of suppression of desire, I can go by what I've observed. And I think let's just say either we're talking romantic relationships here, I believe.
Yes.
And I think there is a sort of, I don't know if this is natural, but I think if one is in a marriage or one is in a long-term relationship, I think there does come to be a deterioration of desire for the other partner or the other person. And I think that deterioration of desire can lead to suppression. I think it can lead to that aspect. Because I think what happens is there's a sort of romantic enemy that occurs. There is a sort of disillusion that occurs, and not disillusion, but disillusion that occurs. And I think that feeds into suppression of desire. That's my take.
Yeah, I think Mrs. VSN. I don't know if you're asking me to repeat that. I don't know which part, but I think it was just one line. Those same desires that attracted you to your partner. Is it possible to turn those desires off once you enter a committed relationship? I think that's the part you wanted me to repeat. Um, so that line, that one sentence right there, I feel like it's a hugely neglected sacrifice that most people pass off as an easy thing to do. Um, and I didn't appreciate that push off as, how hard is it to not see? And I'm going to speak from as a heterosexual male. How is it easy to just turn off the same draw that I had for my sake, for my wife? How do you just turn that off now that I have her? Does that desire, that strong will, that whatever pulled me in, that I have to turn off, or just focus only on, the one that I have? Now, as Defrauding mentioned, great point. In the beginning, yeah, they have your attention. They have your undivided attention if you're really into that person, and your focus. And then over time, where does that does if where does it go? I'm not a dead human being. I still have desires. I still, I love my wife to death, but I'm not dead. All right. So where does it go? It doesn't just disappear, which is why I'm not a fan of people just saying it's so easy to just not do it. Not, don't look at another woman. Like those type things is like, I'm not saying that, I'm staring at everything I see. Ooh, ooh, ooh. But again, the same passion that I had, it's like, where does that go? Um, and it's a real thing, in my opinion. It's a real thing that I see people just brush off. So simply being faithful is a major sacrifice for the sake of protecting feelings, is my point. That's kind of the point that I want to make. So anything on that, Defrauding?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Like, as you said, where does it go? And in my opinion, it doesn't go anywhere. It actually just reemerges, and you meet somebody new, some new woman or something else like that. There can be something about that person that's just as attractive as what you initially felt about your significant other. I think one of the things that you have to do, again, is suppress it. And the way to suppress it is to be able to identify it by being mindful at all times. So if you realize there's something that you like about a particular person that you're coming to contact with that reminds you of that original feeling that you had for your wife, you need to know to cut that off right away, or how to avoid or get around that particular situation in order to stay faithful. And that's what I would have to say about that.
Okay, I see a couple comments in the chat here. Mrs. VSN says, oh, come on, where are you? There it is. Yes, it is possible, but I think it's only after lots of hurt. Otherwise, why would you stay? KK du jour. Can compromise turn into abuse? Good question. That's a really good question.
It is a good question. And I think
Anybody
it's an
want to field
important
that
one
one?
in regards to, well, here's what I will say. In my observation of relationships, what happens, I think, is that compromise does occur within marriages and in, for lack of a better term, non-marital relationships like boyfriend, girlfriend type of thing, or even fiance. So what happens is it's not just cheating, although cheating is probably the major aspect. It could be major abuse, and I hate to bring up major abuse, but because I know you want to stick to other types of abuse, but it could be major abuse like physical abuse. And I think what happens is that what people do to stay into a relationship because of feelings for the partner or the other, they compromise their standards, sometimes their morals, but their standards and their positions in life to be with this other person. They put up with things that they wouldn't put up with in any other type of relationship, say friendships or even business relationships or anything like that. So what happened, and I think this is something that occurs over and over and over and over again in romantic relationships and in marital relationships. That's precisely what I think. People compromise. And I would say primarily, I'll just cite this more specific circumstance. I believe when people have committed a breach of the relationship, which is what cheating is normally seen as, is a breach of trust or breach of the relationship. Often in the past, and sometimes now, there is a compromise on the part of, in some respects, wives, maybe less so husbands, but more wives. They compromise their stance in the marriage by deciding to stick with the spouse. Actually, not just once or twice, but multiple times. I believe that's a compromise. I believe that's compromising your views, your thoughts, your opinions, and your stances and standards for another person. And I think that's a very clear aspect of this. Very clear example.
I wouldn't say the cheating part is just a compromise. I see in my head a compromise is more of like, let's say if your kid has to get out of school 5 days a week, okay, I'll take 3 days, you take 2. You know, like that compromise
Right.
of, okay, we're both going to take a hit on our schedule or something like that. But to just accept something that you totally are against, I would not call that a compromise. That's more of a throwing in the towel, like in my opinion. If you're totally against it,
right? But here's my point: that is also compromise, because people compromise to stay in relationships with people who cheat, for people who are abusive, people who do things they don't necessarily agree with. It is a compromise. It's not the kind of compromise you're talking about. That is compromise that you brought out.
Correct.
See, what you're bringing out is a healthy compromise. This is an abusive or unhealthy compromise. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm using a specific example. Right. Yeah. So that's why maybe I should have been a little bit more specific, but I tried to be. But, good point. Also, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Unadulterated. They're talking to Desert Woman. Sorry. I'm trying to read the chat and keep going. So today we're going to have a little fun today because I got a couple clips that I want to actually play right now. They're only about a minute and a half because I've been trying to figure out. I'm sorry.
Could I just mention KK du jour's comment? Because I think it's a very good one and speaks to what I had mentioned. It states here, a person that's not willing to compromise but wants you to compromise, that's a controlling type of person, and the other person will be living miserable. That to me is one of the red flags of relationships of any sort. whether it's marital or boyfriend, girlfriend, or non-marital, or business or friendship or whatever. That to me is a very huge red flag. And I have to say, maybe people will disagree with me on this. I don't know, hopefully they won't. But here's my point. I don't like controlling people at all. I do not like them. And that's something that I just have personal distaste for. Controlling men, controlling women, doesn't matter. But I don't care for people who are controlling of any sort. And that's, to me, and I pointed this out to one or two people. I said, this person is controlling. This guy is trying to dictate to you or trying to influence you to do this, that, and the other thing. And you got to be careful about that. But that's all you can do when you're, someone who's observing something in someone else's relationship. That's about all you can do. But just my personal point of view, because I liked what was brought out in the comment, I don't care for controlling types of people. Maybe that's the reason.
YM brings a point that if something is unhealthy, it's not even a compromise. A compromise, by definition, is acceptable to both people.
Normally, that is true. But my point when it comes to the example that I raised earlier is that when it does come to cheating, for example, or abuse, individuals do compromise to stay in a marriage. It is a compromise. I think normally that would be right, but not all compromises are based on what is satisfactory to people. Sometimes compromises are done for pragmatic reasons. So a compromise is often a pragmatic pursuit. This happens in politics all the time. People make compromises. It's how legislation gets passed. They're not necessarily happy with the bills that, watered down bills, or the bills that go and eventually get passed, but they've accepted it because it's a way to get the legislation done. And so I think that also happens to an extent when relationships, people compromise to stay in the relationship. It's based on what they perceive as pragmatism or what they perceive as somehow working for them, even though certain aspects don't work for them.
Okay. Now, as I mentioned, I do want to open up a little bit of a different lane here. Before I do, defrauding, any comments on my statements or Al's? I know there was a lot said.
Right. There was a whole lot said. So, I will say one thing. If by compromises, the only compromise is the whole aspect of cheating, and that's the only true compromise or the biggest crux that everything is based on, yeah, that relationship's got serious problems in my opinion. There's a lot of other compromises that come up in a relationship other than just that. So it's kind of like, that to me, that shouldn't be like the number one focus or the number one thing that people bring up as to why they would engage in a marriage or not engage in a marriage. And like you said, if that is the number one crux and the number one reason why you would choose whether or not to be in one, perhaps at that point in time, it is best to not be in one at all. Because again, if that is like the number one focus, I would say being single and living promiscuously is probably the best kind of relationship or kind of way to move forward.
Okay. Now, I definitely am glad we kind of went down this cheating lane, because that is definitely where I wanted to go next. So before I open that up, let me kind of give you where I'm going with this. So I am a Patrice O'Neal fan. I've been a Patrice O'Neal fan for, I think, right before he died is when I found out about the guy. He has so a lot of this manosphere stuff that you hear nowadays, a lot of it has the undertones of his words that he drops probably 10, 15. When did he die? 2011? Like almost a decade ago. But at the time, I think it was so new as far as just his brazenness with what he was saying. And I've always listened to people, even though, you know, I'll listen to a Kevin Samuel. I'm not saying I ride with everything he says, but I'm listening. You know, I'm not saying everything he says is wrong. I think sometimes he's a little overly insulting, but that's just my opinion. But I feel like a lot of it is fed from what Patrice laid down. So there was a show he did, a stand-up, I think one of the greatest stand-ups, about just he hid a lot of real truths of life in comedy. I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now, because now that I've seen some things and I'm like, holy shit, this guy was actually saying some things that I've, you know, I look back on and I'm like, he hid a lot of his messages in his comedy. So one of them was why men cheat. So I want to play this. So this is going to be a real live reaction type video. I wanted to kind of introduce that to this show. So let me see what I can pull up here. And here we go.
If you want to understand men, ladies, I'm here for you. I'm just telling you what we are. You know, not who we are, what we are. Just like what we are that makes us struggle. And really, men are perfect creatures except for, you know, one. Like, if most women would want to be a man, if you didn't have to give up that power that you have, which is our weakness. That's our weakness. It's very difficult. I'm telling you, man. Like, I don't want to be with other women, ever. Like, I want to just walk down the street and go, I never need to look at another woman again, because I'm with the last woman I'm ever going to be with. And I'm like, but it ain't real. It's just, like, no guy wants to cheat and hurt his woman, man. That hurts. First of all, think about what cheating is for a second, ladies. Cheating is a man. He sneaks out of his own house to go, like, find some happiness behind your back so your feelings aren't hurt. Cheating is for you. It's not for me. We don't want to hurt you.
Welcome back. I'm sure either you're laughing at that or you are super pissed off at that statement. Hold up, I got Unadulterated coming in. What's good, bro?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? How's everything?
Good, man. Trying to get deep on this convo, man. What's good?
Okay, that's what's up.
Hey, what's up?
How's everything?
Hello.
And Al, how are you, Al?
Good.
I'm fine, and you?
So what's good?
Yeah. So what did you guys think of those blatant statements there? I mean, I know it's a joke. You know, cheating is for the woman, but honestly, it's funny because it's in my head. It's like, well, damn, I never thought of it that way, but I thought that's why, you know, you don't tell her, because you don't want her to hurt her feelings, and you don't. But it's all because I'm missing something and I'm trying to find it. It has so many levels on it, but I thought hiding that behind the comedy, I think, is genius. So, any comments on that?
Well, what I'll say is this. The reason why the joke works, in my view, is because he's flipping the narrative and humorously stating, well, this is being done in regards to your feelings. It's being done to sort of help you a little bit, which is hilarious, of course. But I think what's interesting beneath this is, well, in my observation, when it comes to men cheating, just my view, is again, this goes back to what I've said in regards to relationships, is that I think we're talking about suppression and repression of desire for the other partner. And one of the things I brought out was, I think what happens when you get married or you're in a long-term relationship is your desire for the other person deteriorates. Your interest in the other person deteriorates.
Are these the relationships you avoid, Al?
What relationships do I?
Like,
What do you mean?
I'm asking, are you? Do you turn the other way when it comes to like any kind of like romantic long term? Because you said you don't agree with marriage, right?
Right,
And I'm
that's true.
speaking generally.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
true.
don't know
Me too.
if this is like, are you speaking in general, or are you speaking from experience here?
Oh, I'm speaking from experience, not my experience, but observation.
Yeah, that's not from experience
So,
then. That's more
right,
just, yeah, like you
I'm
said,
not speaking from
observation.
experience. Right,
Okay.
I'm speaking from
Okay.
observation. Right.
I just want to make sure everybody understands that
No, that's
what
fair.
that is,
No,
because you know.
I believe that's totally fair, and I have no issue with that.
Okay.
What I would say though, like from my observation, I think within a relationship, a marital relationship, long-term relationship, there is a dissipation and a sort of desire and a sort of sexual enemy of sorts, romantic enemy of sorts, right? So that's what I think occurs in, I think, any long-term relationship and or marriage. And so when you talk about cheating, what happens is, and this can often happen if you're with somebody for like a year or 2 years, let alone 10 or 20. But what happens is, because of this dissolution or dissipation, and because of this enemy and deterioration, what happens is that men in general find themselves in a position of seeking not just physical gratification, but I think also emotional gratification with someone else. And I think, here's my take, and I'm sure people will disagree with me on that. I think that the way men and women look at relationships. Huh?
30 seconds.
Okay. I think the way men and women look at relationships is, women largely look at men from a investor type. Like, a man is an investment to them. What they want out of the relationship is an ROI, return on investment. I'm putting this in, I need this out. I think men largely see women from a consumer point of view. It's what they can get, right? It's like you go to a restaurant and get something, and or you go to a store and buy something. It's a consumerist type view. So I think part of the reason that men cheat is based on this sort of consumerist mindset in their mind. Like, I'm not getting this product I want, or I'm not getting this item, or I'm not getting this.
Well, I got two married men, not including myself, on the panel. So I definitely want to hear you guys take. But for the chat, understand that I understand that Al has, he's openly said that he's speaking from observation, not experience. The thing is, I like hearing perspectives that are not of my own, even if I don't agree with them, because sometimes, sometimes the conversation's within that. Now, if I don't let them rock out here and there, I'm not going to understand it to that level. I don't want to assume anything on anyone. So I let people speak their piece. That's what I want to drop there. So, unadulterated defrauding. Do you guys have anything to chime in on that one?
My observation, I think it's a given that all relationships change through the course of time, for good and for bad. If it's a relationship where you're speaking on a romantic level, I think it's incumbent on a person to understand that there's going to be change going in. So what you place value in, if all you're placing value in is the physical attraction and the sexual chemistry, and that begins to change, if you haven't developed anything else in that relationship that's valuable to you, then the relationship becomes disposable at some point. If all she was a fat ass, or if all he was somebody who is going to spend money on you. What happens when someone else comes along with a fatter ass, or when a guy comes along with more money? All of a sudden, that person whom you were with becomes disposable. So you have to determine or look for things or embrace the things that make that person valuable to you, aside from the physical and tangible assets, as it were, that may attract us to them to begin with. So when you're in a marital relationship or any sort of long-term, serious monogamous relationship, when you develop those things, all of a sudden, as you see those little things possibly begin to change, the other things that have become valuable to you, that's what keeps you from wanting to stray. If this person has displayed characteristics that are going to be difficult for you to find elsewhere, then you're balancing losing that versus this short-term satisfaction with the next person. So that's what I think, when you reach that balance of still being able to maintain the physical chemistry and sexual chemistry with the other things that make that person, someone that you don't want to lose. It's almost strange to say it, but you're not cheating, not because you don't see other things that are physically appealing to you, but that appeal is short-lived. And what you have at home, if you're in a marital or long-term relationship, what you have at home is worth more than what that short-term appeal might wind up being to you.
Now that is a very noble statement. Very noble statement. But what do you do with the desires that, like you said, hey, you have a big ass, but that one got like another 1.5 inches on you. So I'm going to keep harping on this because I want it understood that, when people say things like it's easy to just ignore it, it's like, do you have any idea what you just said?
It's not easy to ignore. It's not. I think people are fooling themselves if you're just saying, you go outside and there's just no other woman as beautiful as the one you're with. That's crazy. You see beautiful women, all over the place, so that's where the realization of what you have and some sort of discipline and maturity comes into play. I mean, how many people do we know or have been ourselves where you look back at your life and, oh man, I was with so-and-so when I was 24 years old and I messed it up because I wound up messing with some skeezer I met at the club, you know what I mean, on South Street.
Right.
And, it's because you didn't have the forethought or the discipline.
You're telling your age when you say skeezer, though, right? I'm just saying. Saying.
Hey, but
do your thing, man. Do your thing.
But it's just like, when you're able to assess value differently than something other than the physical, and of course, obviously, that's important, which is why we don't want to allow ourselves to deteriorate, and we hope that we don't have mates who allow themselves to deteriorate, because that physical connection is always going to be important, but it becomes not so much the most important thing. I mean, we've all been in relationships where, the first 6 months or so we spent 80% of the time in bed. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that changes over the course of time. I know you heard it, KK du jour. I know you.
I'm not the only one thinking that, but I know the term well. I got you.
you know, but you know, but what we do is we place the priorities sort of change over the course of time. And when that happens, you know, you settle into a place, like I said, not where you know, your eye, you know, you might not be as fast as you were, as strong as you were. You might not jump as high as you used to, but your eyes still work the same, and your eyes are still attracted to the same things that they were attracted to when you were 17 or 25 or whatever, you know. But it's the maturity level that allows you to balance what is physically appealing to you versus what's important to you.
Right. Appreciate that insight. The frowning, you've been quiet. I know because of, you know, conversations, but I know you want to jump in on this.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I wanted everybody else to have
Can
the
you
floor.
hold it down for a second? I'll be right back.
Okay, no problem. One of the things I would like to say is that speaking from a younger married perspective, what I was looking at is one of the things that you had mentioned earlier, Al. For me, that would have been a nightmare to just boil the relationship down to a consumer and an investment. And these are the only things that a person was thinking about, and that on one side, one person is consuming, while the other person is trying to invest. I believe that all comes down to temperament. It all comes down to personality, and it all comes down to how you think. As a person, I feel that I have a high emotional intelligence as well as a high social intelligence. With that being said, I never looked at it so much as a consumer just because I'm male. I also looked at it as an investment. But the way that I looked at it as an investment wasn't about your financial institution of how much money a person makes or whether or not they had the same kind of assets that I had. What I cared about was something more along the lines of morals and ethics. So, morals and ethics for me were extremely important. I wanted a person that had integrity. I wanted a person that was loyal. I wanted a person that had some form of honor. I believe that if you have high moral and high ethics, that the relationship is going to be more successful, especially if you're like a person like me, who I had those high morals, I had those high ethics. I was raised to think that way, raised to feel that way. Originally, it came underneath the guise of religion, of Christianity. Originally came from that. However, I made a conscious decision and a choice to embrace that and move beyond religion. So therefore, I always kept those kinds of things in my mind, that I wanted those morals, I wanted those ethics. So at that particular point in time, it becomes a lot more than just the carnal obsession of another person. And does this person look this way or does it look that way? Like a lot of the things that unadulterated truth said, I feel is 100% true. As people, we come into a relationship as a person. I have to go back to that whole personal psychology point. Every person has their own personal psychology and they start to think differently over time. The way that I think at 20 years old is not the same to Fraud Charlton's at 25. 25 is not the same to Fraud Charlton's at 35. Every so often, I reassess and change based off of my experiences, my relationships, and different things that are going on within my world. It's maturity. And with that being said, you have two individuals that both have personalities, both have their own personal psychology. They come into a situation where they became a social unit. These two people interact and they change over time. How they grow and how they mature can be different at times. Because it's different at times, sometimes people grow apart, sometimes people grow closer. But what I've noticed is that relationships that are mostly centered around a set of morals and values and things of that nature, for the most part, those things don't seem to change as quickly. Those things don't seem to grow as quickly into different directions. People seem to be very dead set on their moral and ethics that they grew up with. It's a learned behavior, it's a learned thought process, it's one that's embedded into you. So, with that being said, these kinds of things I believe are less likely to change. And because those things are less likely to change, I believe that relationships that are built off of those foundations are more likely to work. Even with making sure that you're in step with a person, there are some things that come from religion that is actually good advice, such as making sure that when you marry somebody and you enter into a union, that you get involved with somebody that's in the same step with you. And a lot of times people just think that that is just, currency or anything else like that, but it actually means more than currency or spirituality. It means your morals, your ethics, your viewpoints on the world. And again, your viewpoints can change, but those morals and ethics, those are unshakable foundations that are extremely difficult to change. Those particular thought processes are the ones that I believe change the whole flavor of a relationship, the entire flavor of a marriage. So, me personally, I would feel like, again, I don't really like boiling things down to just consumer and just investments and stuff like that. I try to stray away from that. But if I had to step into that lane, I would say that a relationship should be founded by two people who are both investing in the future, because the whole point of a marriage is to procreate. And when you procreate, you're going to have a child that is going to go into the world that needs to be set up as best as possible by both parents involved. So therefore, that is an investment. You're investing into a relationship, you're investing into a parenthood, you're investing into a child that's going to ultimately go out there into the world and be a productive member of society, so you would hope. And this person.
Oh man, lost him on a good point. But ladies and gentlemen, you just heard from the 35-year-old defrauding charlatans, not the 25. he's
Okay.
he's
Well,
seen some things.
all right. Well, let me just kind of clarify something. When I'm
Let me
looking,
know when
what
you're
I
back
noted
defrauding.
is he back? Okay. I just wanted to say that when I use that as an example of the differentiation between men and women that I have observed. So it's more of a general aspect of that. And it's not predicated, and it's the use of these business terms, not as absolute bedrock business per se, but to use those terms in a general way. So when I say that women are looking in terms of investment, it's many kinds of investment: emotional, mental, physical to a certain extent. And likewise with a man in terms of the consumerist mindset. It's not so much about money. And so it shouldn't be literally taken to be about money. It's what you invest in a relationship and what you gain in terms of women in general. And men,
Well,
what
I
they
know
get out of it.
this world has more romanticized love and marital relationships and things like that. The underbelly of all that stuff is it has part business to it, because we're
True.
talking about not just money, we're talking about resources, and we're talking about,
Right.
if you're talking about a family, now you're talking about how do we spread those resources, how do we maintain those resources, how do we keep moving as a unit like that. It has a business aspect of it, big time,
Right.
big time. I'm sure an adults
Well,
radio can speak on that.
No, but that's why I noted earlier that marriage is a financial and economic institution in my analysis, and a legal status, but a financial and economic institution, and has been for centuries. Go on.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, because as much love as two people can share, there's few things that will erode it quicker than issues regarding finances. Like you said, the foundation of security, which most women want and most men want to provide, if that's compromised through finances or lack thereof or issues within, that's going to severely hamper both people's ability to trust each other, to just go through day-to-day life without everything else, any other problem being exacerbated, far more than it needs to be. So that is definitely a huge factor. And there are ups and downs with that, and a lot of times it's how people navigate those ups and downs that happen through the course of any significant period of time. I mean, if a woman's with a man because he provides her a certain lifestyle, if he's no longer able to provide that lifestyle for a period of time, is she looking for a higher ground? You know what I mean? And if she is, how does he then feel about her, even if things come back around financially? Is he looking at her through a different lens at that point? It's like, you know what I mean? She's ready to head for the hills, you know, when I couldn't give her what she's used to getting, you know. And women look at men the same, you know. I thought you were able to hold things together, you know. It doesn't appear as if you are, you know what I mean? Did I marry the wrong man, you know, or am I with the wrong man? So, you know, a lot of things not necessarily hinge on finances, but it's a very important factor for sure.
Yes. Speaking of finances, Brian Dennis, I appreciate you. Thank you for supporting the channel.
I just wanted to respond to this.
Well,
If I
one
may.
second. Defrauding, I think you cut out last time.
Oh
good?
yeah. I heard that there's quite a bit of deal of we moved away from into a different direction than where I was at it before I left out. But I just wanted to close that statement as saying that again, our children are an investment. So at any particular point in time, we always need to remember as two consenting adults that when we get into that situation, we are investing. No matter how you look at it, we're not consuming, we're investing. And we're investing into successful members of society. So I just think I just want to drill that home to remind people that is what the whole, you know, that's the whole thing is about. That's what we're supposed to be doing as African American people, is raising up the next generation based off of those morals and values. And that money, I don't feel that money should be the number one facet of any particular relationship. And I can elaborate on that later. Go ahead.
Well, if I may, I just wanted to respond to after what unadulterated truth said. Again, I'm probably going to say something that's controversial to some people, and that's fine. But this is one of the reasons why that's one of the reasons why I myself not only don't believe in marriage, but have no interest in marriage, is that I'm not interested in being the Bank of Al. I'm not interested in being some ATM or some place to get loans, quote unquote, or to be the financial foundation for anyone.
Now,
I don't like
to be honest,
the traditional
Al,
idea.
to be honest, Al,
I don't like what
when I hear you say that, I'm not thinking that okay, he's protecting his money. For some reason, I'm hearing more of that's all I see myself as. Like if you don't see yourself as an ATM and you have something to offer other than just money, I'm wondering why that's not more prominent in what you're saying versus, hey, I'm not an ATM. Well, nobody I don't think really wants to be just an ATM.
Exactly.
No, but I'm making a specific point here. I'm talking about one of the reasons. Now, again, for me, I'm not interested in being the Bank of Al or an ATM or anything. And part of one of the reasons is I don't like the idea of the traditional breadwinner model. That doesn't appeal to me. I don't like. I've always found it unstable and shaky and not effective for men in general. I think it just simply doesn't work. And one of the things I hear, you know, I wound up, I guess, because I had seen one of these, you know, guys on YouTube talk about, I don't know, I think it relationships or something. I just came across something. And so you get a lot of that in your algorithm, unfortunately. But what seems to come up with some of these people that talk about this on YouTube, I hear this outside of YouTube, is the idea that, women have standards and men don't have standards. They just don't care. They don't care about what women do for a living and how much money they make and all that. That may be true for a certain amount of men, but I find that really a sad state of affairs. Because if you're a man and you don't have standards in regards to a woman, it doesn't surprise me why X amount of marriages, or let's just say 50% of marriages, fail in this country. If one goes with reported figures. It doesn't surprise me why relationships fail. It doesn't surprise me why men and women in general fail to be together. It doesn't surprise me because I believe you should, as a man, you should have standards in regards to a woman that you're involved with. Now, admittedly, I'm not married and I'm not looking to get married. But if I were, my view would be I wouldn't be interested in a woman who A, is uneducated, B, isn't working, C, has no money. That to me is a recipe for disaster.
I
if
think
we're going to
all
talk
of your
about
answers
financial.
are wrapped around money, Al.
Well, I'm dealing with the financial aspect.
I'm looking for
I'm
a sugar
evaluating
mama
too.
out there. Anybody out there got some?
No, I'm not. Let me
you
make
know?
that clear. I'm dealing with the financial ramifications here. So my view
Any
is,
lady come up here
I
to
don't.
take Al out of his misery and just put him on the lap, put him in the lap of luxury right now.
What I'm saying is, when we talk about a relationship, I don't believe in the idea that women are the only people that should have standards and men should have none. It just doesn't make sense to me.
So I'm gonna close this on this out.
Right.
In my opinion, and you can disagree, agree, panel, that's cool.
Mhm.
But in my opinion, like I said, I feel like the narrative. I think there's an echo. I feel like there's a narrative in a lot of the tone that you're taking with the finances. I feel like that's, I don't know. It just seems like we're stuck. We keep coming back to that. And I think I threw a softball kind of asking what else is there that you bring to the table. Not necessarily you per se, but just your conversation. It just seems to be wrapped around more of, I got to protect my money. We all want to protect our money. We don't want to get took out here. We want definitely somebody to appreciate what we have other than just money. But
And I like
there's
to
like,
think that we have standards as well.
yeah, that too. I had them
Here's the
yesterday.
point.
I don't think I lost them in my sleep.
Right. Well, again, I'm responding to certain points, and this is a specific point. My standard, and I have standards, and I have a certain viewpoint, even though I'm not married and I'm not looking to get married. From my perspective, I don't like the traditional breadwinner model. I think it's a failed model. It doesn't work. And B, I wouldn't be interested if I were in a relationship. I'm not interested in being I don't care for the whole traditional housewife thing. That doesn't work for me. I'm not going to go out and work and make a bunch of money and someone's going to be at home. I just don't think that's going to work for me.
So let me share this comment from KK du jour. What would you say is the difference between compromise and sacrificing? They are tied into each other, but where do you draw the line? And Honeybee, as she so eloquently does from time to time, drops a gem and answers KK du jour. It's simple. In simple form, compromise is still a we, but sacrifice is just the one doing what it takes to keep it a we. I thought that was phenomenal. I'm sorry, but that one really got me right there.
That's what I was thinking.
That's interesting.
No, that's not interesting. That's phenomenal right there.
Right.
If you don't mind me interjecting,
I just wanted to
really quick.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Alf. Wrap your point.
Yeah. I just wanted to wrap up the point by stating, again, this is my mindset. This is the way I approach things. When I hear men say, you know what, men don't care, they don't have standards, I'm going, that may be how you think, but it's never how I think. And that makes no sense to me. I have standards because, yes, I would want to protect anything financial I have. But it's not a matter of
you
protecting.
need to stop having those conversations with those strippers, man. They messing with your head, man. I'm telling you.
Where do you hear men saying that they don't have standards?
No, I have no conversation with that. I have no such conversation. I have no such conversation.
I ain't got no type. That's what he heard.
No, I don't listen to rap. What I'm saying is, I don't believe in a relationship that's one way. I'm not going to go and work and make money while someone doesn't work and make money. There's got to be something you bring to the table. as the expression goes these days. And if you just bring yourself to the table and nothing else, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah,
It doesn't.
I can understand that. Have you heard conversations where men say that the woman only has to bring herself to the table? That's it. Where men are saying that
Oh,
as opposed to women?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you hear this all the time. Oh, men aren't interested in women's education. They're not interested in their jobs. They're not interested in their money. They're not interested in anything they have to do other than being pretty, good looking, pretty, nice, etc. Because there's that Kevin Samuels mentality of you just have to be he has a kind of, I wouldn't even say old fashioned, I think medieval mindset in regards to relationships. And my point is, we live in an all hands on deck economy in this country. Everybody's got to be able to take care of themselves. And so what I would look for in a woman is, if the relationship doesn't work, I would know you would be able to take care of yourself, have a job, you have an education, you have a career, and you're able to take care of yourself or anyone else. That's how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think the frauding had something. Probably like two conversations back. My apologies.
It's all good. This is what I was gonna say as for Al's perspective and what he's saying. I find you very perplexing to me, because it's like I look into what you're saying and I hear one thing, but then in the very next statement you say another, and it's a little bit of a conundrum to me. So I'm gonna explain how I'm viewing it. In one statement, you say about how unique your perspective can be on certain things, and how you don't want that traditional this and you don't want that traditional that. But you keep referring back to that traditional thought process. That traditional thought process that you're talking about is archaic. That's out of date. People aren't doing that anymore. People have woken up in this newer generation to understand that you define how your relationship goes. You have the ability to control what terms and what agreements your relationship is on. Your relationship doesn't have to be that 1950s model of the man is doing all the work and the woman is sitting at home. You have 100% control and 100% ability to control that. Define your terms and define what it is that you want. You don't have to settle for anything. You don't have to get into a situation where it's just about that model. That is so out of date. That is no longer the case of what is happening. People are changing, and the statistics really reflect people that are still thinking with that thought process of, what is it about the money? What is it about the intrinsic value? That's what it is reflecting. That is what people are preaching. The problem is that a lot of people, once again, as I said, they're getting away from those morals, those values, those ethics. They're getting away from those standards. So when they get away from those standards and they just base everything off of money and education, look, those are all temporary situations that change like that. You are one opportunity away from being able to make as much money as you can dream. You are one risk away from being able to make that money. Education is nothing more than you putting down some money and investing, sitting in a classroom, raising your hand, turning in some homework. That is all that shit is. There's plenty of people that go to school and don't know shit at the end of their 4 years, don't know shit at the end of their 6 years or their 8 years. You could ask them the same questions that you ask a high school dropout, and I guarantee you they get just as much wrong. I've seen people with MBAs, they have written in such an appalling manner that I would say that their education level was on a high school graduate level. And it's surprising. But again, all of these things that you hold in such high esteem, you have to remember, these are temporary, fleeting situations that can be easily changed. When people base things off of their morals, values, and their standards of that nature, sometimes you find a situation as to where people feel so strongly and so passionately about something that they go ahead and they change their situation, their temporary situations, for an overall change. I believe you're talking to two married men on this phone right now who have done that based off of their own integrity, based off of their own morals and values, have changed their financial situation because they believed that their wife deserved that. Their wife believed that they deserved that and changed their situation, changed their education, changed their career for that. Because once again, they centered it around that kid. they centered it around that investment that they're making and contribution to the world. So again, I believe that that's one of the things that you have to think about with this. If you want a woman who's not about that 1950 stuff that you're talking about, Al, you can go out here and find that woman. Find out what it is that you want in a woman. Write every last one of those things down on a piece of paper. And on the other side, write down everything you don't want. Every time you meet a brand new woman and you go on a date and you talk to her over time, keep looking at the facts, keep trying to see whether or not she fits that criteria. But at some point in time, I still feel like there will be a compromise. You're not going to find the perfect woman. You're not going to find the perfect relationship, but you're going to find something that's pretty damn close if you try hard enough. And that's what I would have to say about that.
Yep. Yeah, perfect does not exist, people. Never did, never will.
First of all, here's what you aren't looking at. There is no two aspects here. I cite certain traditional aspects to signify my standard and my view of them. I'm not saying that everyone engages in that. I'm just saying what I don't like. I don't like the traditional breadwinner model, and I'm not interested in a house model. That just doesn't work for me. So I'm stating my standards and my positions and my policy in regards to that. Secondly, in regards to my position is based on pragmatism. It's based on economic and fiscal pragmatism. Your points on moral and values are your value judgment or your prism, your point of view in regards to the relationship. You're darn right on money centric. You're darn right. I've talked with enough divorced men.
That might lean towards why you're not married and it's not being a choice, though.
I've talked with enough divorced men, and I've talked to men who have been in failed relationships. So I see what can happen. And my own personal point of view is one of pragmatism. Because we understand that relationships, even marital relationships, especially marital relationships in general, are predicated on resources to some extent, or resources are a part of it. Money is a part of it. Like I said, marriage is a financial and economic institution.
Money will always be a part of it.
Right.
But
I'm looking at the specific aspects of that. And so my position and my point of view has always been, as a man, I have standards. Even though I'm not married and I'm not interested in marriage.
Somebody hurt you, Al, telling you
I
didn't have
were
standards.
looking at a relationship.
With that pragmatic viewpoint, would you be able to make a decision with just a resume and a W-2 form?
No, no one did.
That was a good question. I think.
No, I need more than that.
I haven't. Are you on a delay?
But my view is part of this comes from, and I responded. We need more than that. But
I think you're on a delay, Al, and I think
the
conversation's back and forth.
Huh?
So, you might have to come
what
back.
I'm stating
go
is
out and come back in.
Specific. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but you're on a delay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know. Is it me?
I gotta jump on the call. Identity. Thanks for having me as always, bro. And Al, good chatting with you as well.
Nice to talk to you.
All right, defrauding charlatans. Be good, bro.
Talk to you guys. You too, man. Great talking to you.
Pleasure's mine.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So what I wanted to do, I still have a little playtime here. So I left off where I had Patrice O'Neill explain why men cheat in a funny way. But what I want to really touch on is how he explains a level of that strong desire of just from a male's perspective, and how strong it could be if you don't suppress it. I mean, like I said, I'm going to keep harping on this because my main point of this was to have people understand what I'm seeing is something that is not trivial. So I'm going to play another clip. As soon as I can pull it up here. Here we go. This one is Strong Desires.
If you give a lie detector test to a man and a woman and ask them the same questions, man, we would pass them both up to a point where it's like, hey, ask a woman, you love your man, you love your family, you love your home, you love what you built. Yep. All right. You see Brad Pitt or Denzel Washington or whatever standing there, would you risk everything you built with your man just to sleep with him? And women, look, they go, nah, I wouldn't. And they'll pass the test. They be like, they look good, but I wouldn't. Ask guys the same thing, boom, love your woman, the kids, the house. Yeah. You see that girl passed out behind the dumpster? Would you risk everything for a passed out woman behind a dumpster? I don't want to, but look at her with garbage on. She looks so cute with garbage on.
I laugh every time I see that clip, man. So yeah, that was just a comedic way of saying that the desire is there. Like even at the point where you're like considering gambling everything, and it wouldn't make sense to do it. But that doesn't mean it's gone. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And I do not believe that this makes, I guess, the male less of a civilized animal. Like I don't think of it that way, because we all have our natural tendencies and we all have, what's innately built in us. And to some degree, this is what I guess some of the LGBTQ community say, that they have certain feelings that the other sex feels like that. It's saying the same thing, but claiming it as a man, in my opinion, claiming it, saying, yeah, that's real. That's in me, but I suppress that. I have to push that down. I have to redirect. I got to do something. And it's not easy. So, any comments on that clip there?
I think that's one of the beauties of marriage, in my opinion, is the fact that in certain situations, with that desire that's there and different things of that nature, there's that sacrifice. And that's a huge sacrifice, saying that you love the woman that you're with so much that you're able to combat against that desire, and that you're willing to forsake those desires and those urges in order to be with that woman. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about marriage.
Okay, Al, I had to mute you because you were outgoing. Yeah, I agree. It's our, as the man of the a couple, a married couple. It's that man's role. Part of it is, I'm committing to this, but understand it is not trivial. I want to give you everything I have. I want to give you my all. I want, because I care about you that much. But do not think for 1 second that it's something to be, it's not that hard. Yeah, apparently you've never been a guy before. And I'll give you another one. So there was a writer for the Chappelle Show. What was his name? Comedian, white guy with short hair now. I guess he's bald now. But anyway, there's a comedian that put it perfectly as well. I watch a lot of comedy, folks, so that's how I know all this stuff about comedy. He put it perfectly where he's saying, anytime a woman is speaking for a man, they would see how ridiculous their statements are if a man came to a woman's seminar saying, the third trimester and what to expect. Now, if a guy came in saying that shit, you probably smack the hell out of him, saying, "There's no way you can even tell me what that feels like, as far as having a child, because you never had one." So understand that's the same thing for a guy listening to someone who's never been a guy say, "It's not that hard. Why are you making it so difficult? It's not that hard." It's real. It is real. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. Anything, guys?
Well, it's interesting you bring up that point about third trimester. It's an interesting example. At best, I think what a person could do, like I had to take, when psychology, I had to learn about birth process because I was on an exam. So I had to learn all that. So a person could tell someone, especially had the expertise of delivering infants, about what to expect in the third trimester, but it would depend on the individual. Yeah, they can't tell you experientially what you'll go through. They can tell you informationally what they can go through, but there is a remove, I would agree. But this is one, getting to the Patrice O'Neill clip. This is one of the reasons why I'm glad I'm not married, is because I don't have to curb myself or put myself in this emotional cul-de-sac or mental cul-de-sac or psychological cul-de-sac in regards to this aspect. You know, and it must be, you know, when you talk about sacrifice, it really must be a sacrifice to curb those desires and feelings for married men. It really must. I mean, I can only imagine what a number of them have gone through, because I can freely admit it's never happened in my experience because I've never really had to be in that experience. But I can only imagine that it must be very, very difficult in some respects.
Okay. Thanks for your opinion. Defrauding? Anything?
Speaking on the Patrice O'Neill clip, I don't think it's just a sacrifice for the men in the relationship. I also think it's a sacrifice for the women in the relationship. They make that same sacrifice as well. It's not like they don't have desires. It's not like they don't have certain things that are about you that they don't see in other men. And one of the things I'll say is that a woman can infinitely get more suitors than a man on most occasions. So with that being said, it's kind of like they also make that same sacrifice. So it's a mutual sacrifice on both sides. And then to get into the other point that was made, I'm sorry, I might have just lost my train of thought on that other point that was just made. Al, could you go back on one of the things you had just said a couple seconds ago, if you remember yourself?
Well, I remember myself perfectly.
Okay.
Of course. I think one of the things I said was, I'm glad, one of the things I said, I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but I'm glad that I'm not in that position that a number of married men are in, where they have to suppress or repress their desire and sacrifice.
Well, understand, some men don't suppress it at all.
That's true, and that's why they cheat. But I'm
We've seen it in
saying
the
the
sector.
very act of
Oh,
doing
yeah.
that, to me, being in that position, is something that I imagine must be difficult at times. Maybe not all the time, but at times. So
That's part of the
it just
sacrifice.
that right. And I
So
just think, go ahead.
you did jog my memory just now, what I was thinking. So what I was thinking about
Right.
was about the what was the third trimester? So being a guy experiencing it vicariously and watching my wife go through it, the different myriad of emotions and different things that I went through versus what she went through were completely different. What I went through was a reaction to what she went through. The thoughts, opinions, and feelings that she had while she was going through that, I could not begin to imagine. The amount of pain, I can't begin to imagine what a morning sickness felt like. I couldn't begin to imagine what it feels like when you have a headache and the room is spinning. I can't imagine what the hormonal imbalance is like. Like none of that stuff can I even begin to fathom. Even with the whole process of giving birth and the different kind of psychological effects it has as it's happening, before it's happening, and then post. Like I can't relate to any of those things as a man. The only thing I can relate to is how I reacted to it. How her reactions and how her feelings affected me and how it made me feel. Those are the only things that I can relate to. So I can relate to another man that possibly had a wife that had a child. I can relate to him, but I can't relate to my wife and I can't relate to that man's wife. But I can better and more easily relate to that man who was in that situation. And he goes, "Oh, I remember I was driving out in the morning time and I had to go get my wife Baskin Robbins at 3 o'clock in the morning." Like those kinds of things I can relate to. Those kind of things I understand. I understand the different hunger cravings. I understand the emotional roller coaster and how that made that man feel to watch that emotional roller coaster. Like those are the things I can relate to. But being able to relate to like, just pain and the traumatic experience of giving birth, I could never.
And that doesn't mean that your point isn't, or your lack of understanding isn't valid, right? Because you'll never be a woman. Even if today you decide to be a woman, you're still, you still need that prostate exam. So it doesn't matter, like as far as what you think. You'll never have that experience, and that's why I'm saying it's just a different level. And you hit on the same point that Mrs. VSN actually hit on, defrauding. Yes, we do. Don't get it twisted. It's not just a male thing. I definitely agree. It is not a male thing. And I will be touching on my opinion of that in the final thought. So please stay tuned, because I will wrap all this up as far as where I stand with everything, and I definitely touch on that. So, but yeah, I'm sorry. Did I cut you off, defrauding? Where'd he go? Is he out again? I think he's out again. Okay.
I'm still
all
here.
right. Oh, there you go. Okay, so I do not have any more points to hit. I definitely am at a point of wrap up for the topic. So, do we have any closing thoughts on what we discussed so far?
I'll let Al go first if he's here.
Oh, he's here.
Well, I'll defer. I'll allow you to have the first final thought.
Somebody's got to go.
All right, I'll go ahead and jump in. So as I said before, like one of the things I wanted to say for my closing thought again is that yes, I believe every relationship is going to have those compromises. I believe every last one of them is going to have those sacrifices. I feel like how you navigate it is going to be unique and different to every person. It's going to be different per every relationship. And what you should do is if you're in that situation where you want to be in a relationship, you need to choose a set of standards, terms, and conditions that work best for you while also working best for that other person. You want it to be as mutual as possible. And I believe that that is a lot of what makes things successful. And I also want to push home something that I remembered from earlier. I believe that when we're talking about relationships, that just talking to people who got divorced or people who are bitter about relationships is not enough. You also need to talk to married men who have made it for 20, 30, and 40 plus years in marriage,
Yeah.
men that have gone all the way to the grave with their marriage and have had successful marriages. And I believe that one of the problems is that a lot of people don't come into contact with those people, or they don't want to hear from those people. Those people have that information and they'll say, I've heard people tell me, hey man, you going on somewhere with your happy marriage. Not all of us have that. Like I've had that. I've had men tell me that, and they were like, you going on somewhere with that. Because a lot of people don't like that, yours is going so well, so successful. It becomes so positive, and then they look at their situation that's so negative, and they're just like, man, I don't get it. What's with me? Oh, that guy must have got lucky. He hit the lottery or something. And of course, how I feel at times, like it's the lottery after hearing all of other people's thoughts and opinions. But you know, I also surrounded myself with other men that were going through successful relationships, other men that have been successful. And once again, what I've noticed with all of them, they all shared one thing in common. It wasn't just their own personal volition of whether or not they decided to be about standards on ethics and morals. Most of all of them built it on morals and ethics. Most of all of them told me the advice of money comes and goes. Money is based on a metallic rock that comes out of the earth. And somebody put some value on that shit and told you that this is important. This rock right here is important as fuck. This is the most important thing in the world. Same thing with diamonds, a goddamn rock. This is important. This is what you need to value. This is what you need to think about as the whole world revolves around this damn rock. And I would say that if that's the case and that's your personality, to each his own, man. If that's what you like and that's what you want, and that's the only thing in life that matters, I get it. But for me and for other men that have been successful with that, it seems that we all share in common that to us, money comes and goes. Opportunities for education come and go. But actual rare people, such as people that really care about their social integrity, people that really care about their morals and values, that shit is rare. It is rare, extremely. It has
Yeah.
always been rare. So therefore, to me, that was something that I believed I valued. To those other men that were successful in their relationship, that is something that they valued. Wasn't about the size of her bottom, wasn't about her breast, wasn't about the money, wasn't about the education. It wasn't about any materialistic things. It was all about the personality. It was all about the things that you can't train at this age. It was all about the things that you can't give a person at this age. So that is what I have to say about that. And that's my closing statement.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Damn, do I need to do mine now? You kind of close out pretty well there, sir. Um, all right, I'm about to go on my little rant. So Al, what do you got before I do that? And also too,
All
I
right.
did drop the link because I guess we can go some sector stuff after this that kind of talk freely about what's going on. I'm about a week behind, 2 weeks behind. I'm still learning. So anybody got some thoughts to share after this? Jump on up.
Okay. So let me just note that when we started this discussion at one point, an interesting point was raised. That is that relationships, whether marital or non-marital, have a potential to be not only to fail, but to fail because of inherent dysfunctionality, a lack of dovetailing, a lack of a joining together, and because of the baggage that people bring to a relationship. That's inherent in any kind of relationship, not just business relationships, friendships, and others, but primarily romantic and, of course, marital relationships. And what I will stress in this regard is protection, primarily from my point of view, which is a male point of view. I can't speak for the other gender, the other sex, because that's, clearly not that. So I can only speak from my perspective as a man. And while defrauding charlatan brings up his sort of focus in regards to relationships, which is perfectly valid and perfectly fine, my assessment of relationships is predicated on protection as a man. It's your ability to sustain yourself, not only in terms of survival within the relationship, but also other aspects. Financial is one of them, but an important one, I would argue. But it's a matter of being able to sustain. So it's sustainability. And I would also say overall protection. What I noted in regards to what I would see if I were in a relationship, what I see is I don't care for what a number of men have said is the aspect of their point of view, their POV, which is, oh, well, men don't have standards. A woman just has to be pretty. A woman just has to be or beautiful and be friendly or feminine or whatever. It's not about her money. It's not about her job. It's not about her education. Well, I would disagree. I believe men should have standards, and very firm standards. And those standards aren't what I would call demands, cooking, cleaning, and all that aspect. But what is this person that you are with? What does she, as the cliche is on YouTube, bring to the table? And my point of view is I'm not interested, and I bring up traditional relationships and traditional mores and methods to just outline what I'm against. I'm against the traditional breadwinner model. I'm against basically getting involved with a housewife or having a housewife, because to me, that's an unequal relationship, not just financially, but also in many other respects. And so for me, in terms of what relationships are, one of the other aspects that's come up is that of compromise, right? And one of the things I noted is that people compromise in various ways. And one of the ways they do this, I believe, is in regards to negative aspects. Women stay with men who cheat on them. And to some extent, men stay with women that have cheated on them. I believe that this is a form of compromise. And you could also cite physical abuse, but I won't go there. But I think people compromise within relationships, not always to their advantage. They do it based on what they think their advantage would be or for the greater good, but it ends up being not good for them. So again, the values that I focus on is protection and sustainability. Are you protected within a relationship, and is this relationship sustainable? And so if it's an unequal relationship, as I mentioned, the traditional breadwinner model or housewives, that's unequal and it's ineffective. So for me, I do have standards. Again, I'm still single, but
I want to know the young lady that hurt you, Al, that told you had no standards, man.
Well, again, it's not based on what people do, or no one's ever done anything to me. And I think that to address that, that's a terrible paradigm through which to view anything. It's not always based on what a person has done to you. It's based on how you look at the world and what you see and your experiences. Those experiences don't necessarily have to be negative on a personal level. It can be from looking at and talking to people. Yes, I've talked to divorced men, but I've also talked to married men. So it's not simply about looking at one aspect, it's looking at other aspects. And again, I'll stress this yet again. It's about, from my perspective, protection and sustainability. This is why in a relationship, the other person has to bring something tangible to the table. Education, money, resources.
Appreciate
and that's my opinion. Closing statement.
Appreciate your opinion, man. Even though it's probably not one of the favorite ones in these streets, but it's an opinion altogether. So what I'm going to do is I am now going to my final thought. All right. So today I got 2 final thoughts because I felt like one was not enough to cover everything that I wanted to talk about. So every healthy relationship is a work in progress. We're all human. We have all insecurities, traumas, etc. that define our world. It may not be an everyday occurrence, but even in healthy relationships, abusive behaviors can reveal themselves. And when they do, you must be willing to pull yourself back and evaluate your actions. Take responsibility for the harm you may have caused. Be vulnerable enough to learn from those experiences. Now, this is not the path of least resistance, which is why it's a struggle for some to accept this design flaw within us. Wait, did I just make the statement that an all-knowing, perfect God created a world with flawed beings? I know that's blasphemy. I'm sorry. I just had to say that. I'll rebuke myself after I'm done with this thought. Understand the sacrifices we make to keep our partners safe from harm and or hardship. When a person is abusive, their apology must mean something. Take real steps to maintain relational solidarity. Excuse me. They must modify and possibly remove any behaviors that are catalysts to the abuse. And willing to empathize with the pain they've caused and compromise with the party they crossed. Relationships are to be nurtured, not neglected. And if at any point you're trying to win in a relationship, you've already lost. That's my first final thought. I will open up a second one. Hopefully you guys heard all that.
Not really. At least
You didn't hear anything?
Nope, didn't hear anything.
I didn't. Yeah.
Not one thing?
No.
Not one thing.
I didn't. Yeah.
Wow. What the hell happened? Oh, do I have to do that again?
I heard
Crap.
music.
Yeah, I think you know what
the
happened.
music was there.
I think when I hit the mute button, it did like a double click. I unmuted and muted. I think that's what happened. Damn it.
That's possible.
All right. I'm going to run through that again. Because I feel like I'm going to answer some questions, or at least some things that we talked about, especially defrauding. You had mentioned something about it being, both men and women have to go through these same struggles and all that. So I didn't want to answer it at the time. I wanted to save it for here. So let me do this the right way. I apologize, people. Hopefully the music was good enough to kind of stay tuned. Let's see if I can do this again. All right, let's try this again, people. Can you hear me? Just a 1 in the chat would be good enough for me.
Copy, I hear you.
Sweet. All right, so
yeah, hear you.
My final thought for the typical abuse, because I have two parts here. This is the typical, physical, emotional, and all that stuff. Those type of abuses. Every healthy relationship is a work in progress. We're human. We all have insecurities, traumas, etc. that define our world. It may not be an everyday occurrence, but even in healthy relationships, psychologically abusive behaviors can reveal themselves, and when they do, you must be willing to pull yourself back, evaluate your actions, take responsibility for the harm you may have caused, and be vulnerable enough to learn from the experiences. Now, this is not the path of least resistance, which is why it's a struggle for some to accept this design flaw within us. Oh, wait, did I just make the statement that an all-knowing, perfect God created a world of flawed beings? Ooh, blasphemy. I'm going to rebuke myself after that one, so don't worry. But understand, the sacrifices we make to keep our partners safe from harm and hardship. When a person is abusive, their apology must mean something. Take real steps to maintain relational solidarity, modify and possibly remove any behaviors that are catalysts to the abuse, and they must be willing to empathize with the pain they have caused and compromise with the party they have crossed. Relationships are to be nurtured and not neglected. And if at any point you are trying to win in a relationship, you have already lost. That's my first final thought. Hopefully you guys got all of that.
Copy.
Sweet. All right. So, because I didn't plan on having two, I got to kind of run that again.
I believe this is the part right here where I'm not hearing anything but the music.
This is really annoying. Let me think. Did I do my self-inflicted abuse yet?
Yeah, I caught none of your second thought yet.
Yeah. It's. I think when you relaunch this thing here, see it remutes you. Damn it! I'm learning that. I apologize, people. Jesus,
it's all okay. It's
this is killing me. Yeah, I know, right? Somewhere in the world, Star is laughing her ass off. But that's okay. So, my final thought on the self-inflicted abuse. Specific to heterosexually romantic relationships, because that's the only relationship that I know of and I've been in. So, or romantically, anyway. Those self-inflicted abuses or sacrifices they're so commonly called, sometimes we don't necessarily deem them worthy of consideration of a conversation. There's so many people believing that cheating is so easy to avoid. Speaking from a heterosexual man's perspective, I can tell you firsthand that suppressing desires for the greater good of a relationship is not easy, people. The same wants and desires I had when I met my significant other still exist. They don't simply go away. But let's take it to another. Let's look at it from another angle. Chris Rock said it best. A man is as faithful as his options. And unless that man is extremely good looking, he has to work hard at getting that woman he desires, even if she wants him to. So women, please understand, even the most average looking woman has been getting approached since a very young age. But most of those guys, you weren't interested in. Ever wonder why you're intrigued by a guy who's persistent? Maybe because he's stuck around long enough to deem himself worthy in your life. I don't know, maybe. All I'm hitting at is we need to celebrate, not denigrate every man who commits himself to maintaining a healthy relationship. We celebrate the women all the time. We do. I'm just pulling up the pants of the men's side a little bit over here, just a little bit. It is harder than you think, ladies. So if you're sitting next to one of those good men out there, tell him, no. Show him you appreciate his sacrifice. And after that, give him my Cash App, $ identity withheld. I take donations for my efforts and my words. Thank you for listening. I hope you got all of that.
Yes, we did, or at least I did.
Okay. Did I say anything out of line there? I think I lost the frauding.
No.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, I thought you were pissed off somewhere. Okay.
No, I think that was good. I will say one thing about your final thoughts. That song you're using is so entrancing, man. Because it took me a second on the second time around when you were playing the music to say, "Hey, there's no audio coming through." It's something about that particular song. It's entrancing. Like I started thinking about other things. It gave me ideas of things to write about. I was like, "Hey, man, whoa. Hey, I'm still on the show." So, like that particular song, I don't know what that is, but
it's the gift that keeps
pretty
on
nice.
giving.
It's orally hypnotic, you're saying, basically?
Super hypnotic.
It's orally hypnotic.
Uh-oh. Al's flexing his muscle again.
Just saying, what it seems to me is that it's sort of orally hypnotic for some people.
Yeah, so for me, I have a bag of beats. Like I go like just searching everywhere trying to find, whatever grabs me. Like I literally listen to playlists of beats. And when something grabs me, I check to see if it's available, if it's free. Most times the good ones are never free. But I don't mind paying for someone's work if it's really good. So
sounds like, when you said the good ones are never free, that sounds like a book on relationships. Jeez. The good ones are never free.
You're trying to start the show all over, Al?
No, I'm just saying. When I heard that, I said, yeah, hey, you got to go for the openings. It's all timing.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to hit the button. We can start doing some sector talk right now.
Okay.
Warning. You are entering a restricted area. Return to where you came from or be destroyed. Message ends.
And we are back. So honestly, I have to ask, and I'm so glad Al stuck on this one. I heard that conversation you had with not Propane. What was his name?
Photon.
What is it?
Oh,
DNA?
yes.
I heard that conversation, and I can tell you right now, I have no idea why you stayed on that call, because it was so out of this world loony to me. I understand there's characters on this internet, but wow, it was weird because I see you were trying to hold some sort of structured conversation. I was wondering why you were still trying, because it was not working.
Here's the thing. technically I had been on Photon's panel twice, but we never got to talk. And the reason the second time was Muslim, which I won't go into detail unless somebody asks, but I won't go into detail here. And the first time was there were several other people on the panel.
Did you see Defrauding? Uh-oh.
No, sir, I didn't see it.
Okay. Yeah, it was a random thing that came up, and I just hit the who's live right now, and it came up.
But
if y'all could explain the premise, I'd appreciate it. Just so I know it's
okay.
happening.
So I'll tell you what I saw from the outside looking in.
Okay.
Imagine ODB on speed trying to have a conversation with someone who's trying to be logical. It was a train wreck from the start, and I had no idea. I think, Al, you got kicked off like 5 times in a matter of like 2 minutes. And
Something
you kept
like
coming
that, yeah.
back. He was even shocked, like he's still back there. And he kept bringing you back.
What happened was this. He cut me off, meaning I was backstage. And then I was backstage for like a few seconds, and he brought me back on. And he did that 3 or 4 times. I'd never experienced that before. So I'm like, I wasn't even able to leave because he kept going, just pressing the button. And I said, wow, this is a record.
Now, I don't know if you heard him, what he was saying when he kicked you off, but every time he kicked you off, he's like, get the fuck out of here. And then he'll bring you back.
That was what was interesting about it was, here's what you got to understand. And maybe it won't make sense for me. When I'm on a panel, I don't have any ego on a panel. For me, going on a panel isn't about ego. Or
I don't know, Al. I think people would disagree with that statement.
You can disagree all you want, but I'm telling you what the facts are. I don't go on a panel in regards to ego. I leave my ego outside. Because being on a panel to me is about what we've had here, discussion. That's what a panel represents to me. And part of the reason I come to the show is discussion. We had good discussion today, and that's what I look for in a panel. So in regards to Photon, I never really got a chance to talk to him. I was supposed to, then Muslim came and there are other things. And so I got a chance to talk to the guy, and I don't really know the guy. So it just gave me a chance to talk. You view it as a train wreck. To me, it's like, how do I put this?
You were trying to make sense of nonsense. And that's where I was like, why are you still here? Because this is, it's a never winning battle there, or even a compromise. There wasn't even a compromise. It was 1 minute he's talking about space, then he's talking about, I can't think of the word he was trying to break down and be all philosophical with it. You had made a statement, I think either it was a Star Wars reference or something, and he kept repeating the word as if it was like deep. I'm like, what is he doing? Like, is this a real character or is this? I don't know. But this is how I know that guy. That's how he is on panels and conversations. It's like, is this the real guy? So I don't know. That was a surprising thing. I'm not telling people to go back and check it out because it was kind of crazy to me. But if you want some entertainment, I guess it was one of his last lives. I know he goes live almost every day now. But it just happened to pop up. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not subbed to his channel, so I don't see it all the time. I know he rocks with a certain people who have like internet securities. I know he rocks on that panel. But are you welcomed over there, Defrauding anymore, or are you blocked?
I don't think I've ever went to a Photon type of thing. I've never been on his channel before. I've only seen when people have discussed Photon's lives on other channels, and some of those channels I may indeed be blocked on. But they'll discuss Photon and they'll bring him up. And that's when I'll hear some of the craziness that happens on the show. And I can say firsthand that, some channels I don't go to because I understand that, they got a lot of crazy stuff going on. They get a little bit too deep into the effery. And then also like it's a lot of channels that I'm surprised that Al went on that show, because if it sounds like that, if it was crazy like what you're saying, identity, I don't think I would have
Dude,
even fooled with that.
dude,
Like,
he was showing like DNA strands going in like it's like, that circular pattern. Like he was just showing all these all right, you're of a certain age. Do you remember the movie The Mac?
the movie The Mac.
The Mac. It's an older movie. I know Snoop Dogg
You're
and all those
talking,
dudes used to
no,
always
you're
reference that movie.
referring to the movie. Wait a minute. You're referring to a blaxploitation film with Richard Pryor?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that movie there's the pimp named Goldie. He had all of his women in a room watching this film, and he was just talking, but on the film it was just random stuff like stars exploding in space, and like it was just so random. And that was what I was thinking, like, is he messing with my mind right now? Like what the hell is he showing me? What is he doing? So Brian Dennis says Photon DNA is a character I enjoy his live streams when I'm under the influence. Okay, I got
So
you.
let me just address having talked to him. Now, was that the first time you had been in the chat and seen a show?
Yeah, I've only seen him on
Okay.
panels where he jumps up on the guy who owns Smoke Securities. That guy, I've seen him like in the chat over there, and I've heard him on Slander before, and he's always everywhere with his conversation. I would just pull my hair out if I wanted to have just a conversation with him one-on-one. That's why I was wondering, why do you keep coming back? He hung up on you 5 times.
Well, again, let me explain. The reason why I dropped off was there was a call. Somebody tried to call me, so I don't know who it was. Here's what happened.
And he said, "Get the fuck out of here," like 4 times. I don't know if you heard that, but he kept saying it and then bringing you back.
That was the odd part, is that he kept bringing me back. I was barely in the waiting room backstage, and then I was back on. I didn't expect to be back on. It was, how do I put this? Again, the reason I was there was really just to check out the lives. I never really expected to go on the panel any time when I was checking out his lives.
Now, I was contemplating joining and asking, what the hell are you talking about? I really was going to do it because the weird part was I was intrigued enough to still listen. Like, what is he talking about? What is he, after about 3-4 hangups, I bailed because he was rambling, but it just was a weird thing.
Again, if you want my experience, let me just try to present it as best I can. Again, I had been on his panel twice, but there were other people there. And the second time was the whole Muslim thing, which I won't go into unless somebody asks me. So that time that I was on that you watched was the first time I actually got to talk to him. I never talked to the man before in any length of time. And for whatever reason, he seemed interested in me to some extent. Now, I don't know anything about Photon, and I don't know much about his personality.
I think he enjoyed the chat trashing you. I think he enjoyed that part. But you seem to get that everywhere you go, Al.
Right. That doesn't, I don't care about what people in the chat say. So that's irrelevant to me. And I've said this elsewhere. So I don't focus on what people are saying.
Shot him loves you.
Yes, I'm sure he does. Though I have nothing but hate for him.
So what else is going on in the sector? Any crazy? I think I caught a little bit on the We Unlock stuff. I don't know the details.
I wanted
of how
to address
that
what you were going to ask me. Before you get to that, I wanted to address what you asked me about the experience of being on the show. And what I wanted to say in regards to it is, you said I was trying to have a logical conversation with Photon when I was on the panel. Actually, that wasn't the case. what I did was go with the flow of the conversation, like I do in most other panels. So,
but
if
there
there's a
was
topic,
no flow, Al. That's what I'm saying. It was so random, bouncing
right? But
around
see,
so much.
but that's the way his show works. And so what you have to do is adapt to that. I had never talked to the man before, so this was a different experience. For the most part, it was fine up to a certain point. And then it got interesting.
So I think
But
there's more
what I would
interest in what
say,
happened with Muslim.
I'm sure, let me just finish this first. So for me, if I could describe it, it was a little like being on a roller coaster. It was a real roller coaster, but I found it interesting. I found it intriguing because it wasn't like any other panel on any other show that I'd been on. So I didn't arrive and I didn't come on the panel thinking, the conversation has to move this way. And it has to
based
have
on what
these
Brian
topics.
Dennis said, were you under the influence?
Me? No.
Yeah, I think that's what Brian Dennis said. It's actually a good fit for that.
Right. I'm sure. I mean, that makes sense. It makes sense. What's intriguing about his show is that it works more from a viewer point of view, like you're in the chat and you watch it. So when he does all his Milky Way galaxy, as I call it, Milky Way galaxy B-roll and reticulating strands of DNA, computer models, and all of that, and his musical aspect. That's intriguing.
I got it, Al. I got it. You had mentioned playing the Commodore 64 back in the day as a kid, as a game console.
Yeah, that's true.
And he kept making it seem so deep. You play the Commodore? Like, what the hell is he doing? Like, why are you saying it like that?
I get what he's doing. Actually, I get what he's doing. What he's doing is almost jazz-like. He's riffing. Because music, you have to look at the fact music is a big part of his show. So he's riffing off of phrases and words. That's why he gets excited over certain things. I found
he was all over the place, man. He was all over the place.
Yeah.
So
again,
Mrs. VSN wants to know about Muslim.
Yeah. You mean that panel on that show?
Well, you said something about you didn't want to touch on it, but what are we talking about?
Oh yeah, unless somebody had asked me. Well, what happened was the second time that I was on let me see, on what's his name, Photon show. It was something called Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, man, we're back to Photon. Jeez.
No, but that was the panel that they're talking about. So what happened was I was starting to get into a conversation with Photon. And Muslim came on the panel and he started asking me weird questions. And he started trying to harangue me. And it kind of deteriorated. And I had to kind of put him in his place. Primarily, I believe.
You put Muslim in his place?
Of course.
Hey, defrauding. I think Al over here flexing right now.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, actually, I regarded it. I just regarded it kind of. I didn't want to actually talk to the guy or have to do that. I just wanted with Photon. But this guy came on that panel and embarrassed himself. He made a fool out of himself. And
Brian Dennis says Muslim admitted that he had a few drinks that night.
Well, he sounded a little drunk. I don't think he was entirely drunk, but it's clear he was under the influence. And, again, I didn't want that conversation or that aspect to go the way it did, but he asked for it. And what he got was being shown the door by me.
Damn.
And being shown to be the rather foolish man under the influence that he is, the little man that he is. And I think it's arousing some suspicion among others. Not everyone, but among some in the sector. People are beginning to ask questions about Muslim, from what I understand.
Well, there's another question. I don't know necessarily it's a question, more of a request from Stephanie Collins. So I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window. All right. Open it and stick your head out and yell. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm going to take this. I'm not going to take this anymore.
What she's doing is quoting the famous line from the 1976 movie Network. That's what one of the characters, Howard Beale, stated.
Well, damn.
Of course, I analyzed the movie was one of the movies I analyzed in a show I was a guest on earlier this year. Was that in some other movies that relating to journalism? So it's interesting that she references Network here. Actually, the speech in Network that I'm interested in is not that one. It's the speech that Ned Beatty gives, where he talks about, you have meddled with the laws of nature and you will atone, which is what I will say.
Hey, ladies out there, Al's into movies from the 50s and 60s, so you know how to touch his heart.
Well, that's from the 70s, but
there you go, 70s. My bad, I misspoke.
Right, but that's what that speech from Ned Beatty and Network is. One I probably will give to some in the sector. You have meddled with the laws of nature and you will atone.
Well,
there's also
I don't know. I don't know a lot of the details of all the Muslim stuff. I do know that Muslim made it public on my comments that he will not support me financially if Al's part of the show. I wouldn't say Al's part of the show. He shows up. He shows up, and I look. Anybody want to have a conversation? I'm listening. Hey, Muslim, if you have something to say, come up here and say it. I'm listening to you too. So, I'm definitely not one to follow anyone's specific suggestions of who I should and shouldn't have. That's not something that I would do because, as people told me before, like, hey, do your thing. It's your channel. If they don't want to rock with it, then they don't rock with it. I can't solve everybody's problem with who I bring and who I don't bring. I understand Al is definitely someone that people get, he ruffles their feathers, but hey, if you have something that either combats what he's saying or, something to offer to the conversation, you're invited up too. I'm not going to shut you down because someone else doesn't like you. You know what I mean? If I have a rapport with you, I have a rapport with you. I got in some serious goofy stuff with the whole smoke stuff, having the same approach because I was one of the latter people to kind of walk away and see it for what it was. But it took someone saying something about me that was like, wait, why didn't you come talk to me first? So I'm still standing my ground. As Defrauding says, I have a certain set of morals and I carry myself a certain way, and this is how I rock. If someone doesn't like you, they don't like you. If I don't have a problem with you, it is what it is. I'm not saying I agree with everything Al says or does, but Al's Al. Defrauding's defrauding. Is it my fault that people just love every time Defrauding opens his mouth? And then when Al speaks, the chat goes crazy. Like, what am I going to do with that? So, but he also brings a level of people actually talking and conversing, even if it's about not liking him and shut up, Al, or you're talking shit, Al, and all that stuff. Hey, those are comments that probably wouldn't even be there. So I don't mind the conversation. That's my point. I don't mind it. And if it's a problem that he's up here and if you don't like him, it's understandable. But please understand, you're not coming for Al. You're coming to rock with Identity on his channel. And I'm bringing people that have conversations. That's it. That's it.
Here's what I observe about Muslim. just my take on his behavior and the way that he carries himself and what's going on. It's not about me. I don't think he cares about me one way or the other. I think it's about content creators. And I'm going to be blunt here. I think what he really wants to do is influence content creators. And that's why the whole Cash App thing is important to him.
Well, I've been told that he was trolling me. So I don't know if that's true or not. But I do know that it was put on the public forum right now. I think
very first time I seen that was on Max V's show when Muslims said it, and Max V got them together real quick. And I think it was a misunderstanding because what happened was I believe this was before the controversy that happened with Al. Not with Al, with Big Man. So this is before all that controversy. What happened was out of nowhere, I think Muslim said, "I will not support any channel that has Al on the panel." And I remember the next thing you know, Max V went off on him, and it got like seriously heated because Max V was like, "Did he say that on any other content creator's channel, or did he just come in here to mess with me?" And I remember seeing that because I was on the way to base that particular day, and I was like, just driving, and I was listening to the show a lot, listening to just about anything because it's radio to me. But at the same time, I was listening to it and I heard it, and I was like, oh, so he's been saying this in other places, and then he said it again on your comments a couple weeks later, and I was like, oh, okay. So this is something he's telling all content creators. So there must be some kind of issue in between him and Al. And Al saying that he doesn't think there's an issue between them personally, but that's not what I'm picking up from Muslim because he's going around saying this on multiple panels. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that idea of you can voice your opinion, that's fine, but I almost see it as a level of manipulation. If it's real, if it's not trolling. I don't know if it is trolling or not, but what my first reaction to it was, this is not something that I can sit back and just assume it to be trolling. I'll address it, and if I'm wrong, we can have a conversation. Because I'm not a fan of that level of manipulation. Like, first off, I put more time in this than the money that I get from it. There's no comparison. Exactly. I put way more time into this than what I get paid for. So part of this is the love of what I do. And I love having these type conversations. I love having these, it doesn't have to be philosophical, but I just love hearing perspectives. And I'm not shutting anybody down because someone else doesn't like them. Like, that's not what I'm here for, though.
Right.
Now, if I'm rocking with somebody, like, I'm good with Muslim. But Muslim didn't start this channel with me. Muslim didn't get, I'm not pointing them out only specifically just him. I'm speaking in general. Nobody came and threw money at this, right? So I don't like the idea of anyone saying that to a content creator, because all you could do is just turn it off, right? You could just not listen. Like, how about I would have rather it not been said at all. Because I know people out there are thinking that, like, he still has Al up there. He still has Al. Look, if you feel like you can bring something better to the conversation, come on up. Come on up. Rock out. Defrauding shows up. And, obviously he's dropping jewels every time we get up here. Sometimes I feel like I'm second fiddle on this one, but that's a different story. But the idea of it is I do what's comfortable for me, because I feel like this was something missing that I was looking for. So now that I have it, it's going to be what my vision is. Now, I'm listening to people's opinions of it, yes. But to say I'm not going to support you if you do this with this person, well, are you coming because so you're telling me your hate for this person is stronger than the love you have for my content and what I'm bringing to the table? That's what it sounds like to me. And that's the part I don't like, because it's manipulation. Like, I'm not going to bend on this. If you don't like Al, that's fine. You can hate him everywhere you want to go. That's fine. But when you show up here, Hopefully you come in because you know there's a certain level of content that I'm bringing, and you know, and there's certain conversations that we're having that's way more important than these YouTube beefs. I'm trying to get through that shit. I'm trying to get beyond that shit. We don't know each other personally, so I'm not carrying it so much so that I'm going to kick Al off if he's bringing something. Granted, it's a little winded sometimes, I'll admit, but that's okay. That's all right. I usually give him some 10-second warnings, 30-second warnings, but other than that, he's talking. He's conversing. Different opinion. He's talking about marriage, and he's never been married. That's a weird conversation, but I'm listening. So if anyone's not rocking with that, fine, that's okay. But to say it in public forum, I thought it was a little more disrespectful than anything, because I've been on panels with Muslim quite a few times, and I thought, hey, there's nothing that would keep you from coming to check me out. I thought we were good. Now, fine, I'm not going to have everybody that you want because it's not your show. If you want specific people that doesn't have the name Al, then go create it. So I guess that's my little rant as far as what Max did. I don't remember what he said, but I'm probably saying something similar to what he said.
Well, let me just note this. Here's my take on it, because in some respect it involves me. My take on the situation is that I don't think it's fundamentally about me. My view is if first of all, the supposed reason for this was this guy asked me an odd or couple, and my response to it was, look, that's none of your business. And for some reason, he didn't know how to handle it. I mean, that's what he cites, was the fact that he supposedly didn't like, he doesn't go into detail or explain it, but I think he mentioned it. And my point is, when you ask someone a question out of the clear blue sky, that's odd and not related to the conversation we're having. And if somebody tells you, you know what, that's inappropriate and none of your business, then it's none of your business. He actually stated, well, I stated that you didn't have to answer the question. Yes, you did. But you don't ask someone a question and then say, well, you don't have to answer it. Yeah, you shouldn't have asked it in the first place. But the point is, when somebody tells you that's none of your business, when I said where I'm from, it's you move on. You say, okay, that's fine. For some reason, he didn't know how to react to this. Now, I don't know. You have to understand, he's a stranger to me. I'm a stranger to him. I don't know this person. And
I would say most of us are
you,
strangers to each other. We just know voices and some opinions.
But
that's all we got.
What I mean by that is I never had any dealings with the man. I was never on a panel of his. I don't think he makes content. So there wasn't even any kind of YouTube thin relationship or close to it. So I just didn't know the man. He just didn't know me. But the point was, he began asking questions that implied a level that was, I think, beyond the boundaries of what our two positions were. I mean, the reality is, in my experience, if somebody tells you it's none of your business, it's none of your business, and you move on. Why you would be offended by that or get angry, which apparently he did, I don't know. I don't know the man, so I can't speak to his mindset. But my take on that is, his behavior wasn't to go on a panel like this one and complain about it. And I said this before, had he done that, I at least would have had no problem with it, because you're voicing your view. You would have been worthless and it wouldn't have been valid, but at least you would have stated what issue you had if there was an issue. He did no such thing.
Let me say what Max told me when I first came to these YouTube streets. I was on panels. I think I found Max just random searching on YouTube, whatever. And I believe Binary was on, Mikey was on. This is on Mac's channel. what was that guy's name? I can't think of all the characters or people that were on there. But the point is, when I came in, and I it wasn't Cash App back then. It was Super Chat or whatever. I used to, $10 here and there, support the channel. And I heard him mention that the people that are on the panel are actually supporting the panel. Now, it's not monetary, but it is a level of support, because without the people talking, you're going to have me rambling on here for 2-3 hours and, not listening to opinions of people's like, yo, dude, you're on the wrong shit, man. Stop talking. Like, I want to hear that. I want to have the conversation. So if someone says, excuse me, that they don't like someone on the panel, then what are you bringing up? Because if you want to come up and bring something as well, then come on. Let's have it. It doesn't have to be negative, but if you feel like the person is not bringing something, that's different. But just because you don't like the guy, I'm not here to mend relationships of YouTube beefs. I can't. That's Star's job. I'm not doing that. That's her lane.
You're not bridging the gap, so to speak.
Yeah, that's Star's lane. That's not why I do what I do. You're not going to see me at 2 in the morning asking if you're up. So like that's Star's thing, and I love her for it.
Right. So let me just and so the point is, if he has a actual personal issue, you deal with the person, or at least go somewhere and say, I didn't like this, even though to me there's no issue and there's nothing to dislike. But what he did instead was go on these panels, go in the chat and threaten content creators, not me, but content creators, with withholding cash apps if I wasn't on a panel. As far as I'm concerned, that's not only disrespect to content creators like you, it's a level of inappropriateness and lack of civility that shouldn't be tolerated, I think, anywhere in YouTube. One of the things I've learned in coming on panels is this, and I've stated this before, I'll state it again. You can't tell a content creator who to have on their panel and what to do in terms of content. So people can say what they want about my view of Max. But when I was on his panel, I never told him anything about how to do his show, nor have I said that to anyone whose panel I've been on, including yours, Identity.
Yeah, and I want to get to the whole Max thing too, because I'm a little lost on how you guys are. But before I do that, I do want to make the statement that I started becoming on other people's channels. Like I knew what I wanted to say and what I felt was a certain way, this or that. And I did find myself in those positions where I'm like, I would really love to tell them to stop doing that. And I had to check myself on that, because I was literally going to give them advice on how to run a channel that I'd like to see. And that's where it dawned on me, what the hell? Why don't I just do my own thing and then not even trip when people do it their own way? I remember Slander coming in the chat one time asking, is he good? Yo, you always good, because you have a lane. I'm not knocking your lane. I don't know how you're going to sustain that all day, every day, because it's very draining, I'm sure, on you. But I'm not here to tell you how to run your show. Do your thing, man. I'm still watching. I'm not on no soapbox telling people you can't, you should do it my way. No. Right. No, I already did some self-reflection here. I already looked at how I was moving, and that's why I created my own, because I had something to say specifically tied to how I want to see it, and that's why I did it. I fought for a long time not to do it, and I got comfortable on binaries, because I let him do all the legwork. Hey, look, I'm just showing up with the jokes and the convo. I can go deep with you, and I can joke around all day. And in the chat, I'm probably murder, probably as good as defrauding. Like I go crazy in the chat. I be trying to hurt you out in the chat, but don't take it personal. It's just that's when I'm in that mode. That's where I am. I'm not on the panel. I'm in that chat, and I'm there to light that shit up. That's usually the way I approach it. So,
And if I could interject on that, that
sure,
is
sure.
one of the things that I believe in too. Like it took me a while to learn how to operate and navigate within this sector because of the way that this sector operates. It's different from any place I've ever been on YouTube, really, other than other African American sectors. But it's different. It functions different. It's a different kind of animal. So I had to learn how is it that I can function in this sector while also protecting my professionalism. Because my professionalism is extremely important, and I can't let some stuff that's happening on YouTube compromise my professionalism and compromise my position in the world off of some entertainment. So I had to learn how to move and how to navigate within these parameters. And to me, it's crazy that you even have to move like that. That makes no sense to me. But again, it is what it is. And a lot of the times, like you said, with the chat, I wild out in there and I say all kind of stuff. Now, believe it or not, I can do the same thing over the mic. Like I'm quick with it. But the thing is that I come from different culture. Since I come from that gaming culture, I make jokes all day. I talk stuff about people. I remember when I was 18 years old in PlayStation Online. For me, it was my first time getting on around about 17 or 18. I was afraid to get on because people was on there cracking jokes about each other. They was saying all kind of crazy stuff. They just chose a person and they just started going in on them. So I was afraid to jump on the panel because I was like, oh man, if I jump in the chat, they're gonna say crazy stuff to me, and I don't want to get talked about. So what happened is over time I was like, well, wait a minute, I play the dozen in real life all the time. I don't think there's no difference. So then I jumped on the mic one day. Some guy randomly started talking about my line and started talking about my mama. And then I went back at him. And then, from there, everybody was laughing. Everybody was having a good time. That was part of the whole gamer culture. We make jokes. We talk about each other. We don't mean anything serious. I don't know that guy behind that system. I have no idea
Right.
who he is. I don't know who his mom is. I don't know who his dad is. I don't know whether or not he has a disability or not. I don't know any of this stuff. We're just joking. We're just on there having a good time. We're saying stuff that sounds funny. And that was one of the things that we was involved in with that culture. That's what the internet culture was about. But people came from other walks of life and got on the internet and they created their own culture in their own particular sectors. And that's when I had to understand that what I would do in some parts of the internet ain't the same over here in this part of the internet. So I
Yeah.
had to quickly adjust to that and quickly understand that, I can't be in here wilding out on the mic saying crazy stuff because I'm gonna make it to a video. Somebody gonna take that all out of context, and then the next thing you know, they're gonna have my district office on the screen. They're gonna be calling people and shit. I ain't got no time for that. I'll be that ignorant. Went to a whole nother direction and went to a whole nother type of energy. Because you're not gonna sit here and threaten my profession and threaten my life and threaten the way that I make money and put food on the table and think that that's okay. Again, we have to remember that everybody comes from different levels of society. Everybody comes from different backgrounds and everything else like that. Please do not play with me like that. Like, I'm just putting it out there. Like, do not play with me like that. I don't play those kind of games. I'm not finna go back and forth with you like that. It's finna get real serious real quick. And what do I mean by that? It's going to get serious legally because that's where I'm going to take it first because I'm a functioning member of society. So keep that in mind. But again, I just don't understand why people are doing it and why people are putting it out there like that. I just don't get it, but I
It's
had to
almost
understand.
they're proud of doing it.
Yeah. I talked to their
Well, here's the thing.
superintendent.
Right. Well, here's what you have to understand. Here's my view of that. We discussed this to a certain extent on a previous episode. And my view has always been, at least as I came up in my life, is you get back what you put out. If you put out negative energy and negative behavior, you get back negative energy and negative behavior. If you go out of your way to attack, demean, humiliate, and vilify others, there will be a counter reaction. They say supposedly in physics, for every action, there is a reaction. And this is one of the chief things I think people need to understand, not only in YouTube, but here in the sector. For every action you make in a video, and what I would say is negative action, misbehavior, attack, vilification, so forth, there is a reaction. To think that you can go and attack and say things about others and they will not respond. to me is the height of lunacy. It's the height of idiocy. So this notion that it's just YouTube or it doesn't matter or it's just jokes, no, it's not. You have to be careful in regards to your behavior. You have to be careful how you approach. Jokes are fine. Jokes are good. But roasting, I don't think so. You have to be careful. You have to know what line to cross.
No, I don't know
That's
if you're
the way
talking
that I
about
do it.
the roasting with Slander God. Honestly, I thought it was a good idea because that's the lane he's in.
No,
That's
I
his
mean,
lane.
so not his channel, because what Slander God does with his channel is he set his channel up to be sort of a no man's land.
Yeah.
It's a neutral zone. Anything goes. That's perfectly fine so long as you understand that the rules are there are no rules. That is functional there in that channel, right? But what I'm talking about is outside of that channel. What I'm saying is you get forth what you put out. So when people engage in behavior that by any standard or definition is wrong, and somebody decides to get involved or react in however way that is, why you can't then go and complain, well, why did you have to go there? Why did you have to do that? Why did you have to involve others? They involved others because the energy or behavior you put out was negatively received and created a counter reaction. Like I said, in regards to physics, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. That's what you have to look at in regards to the sector. And people don't seem to understand that. They seem to fall back on the excuse that it's just YouTube and anything I say won't work or doesn't matter. No, you have to understand. Years ago, I met Dick Gregory. And
we can't go another 5 minutes out.
But I'm just going to say this.
Here's what I want to briefly state. He once told me when I interviewed him, he said, you got to know who to mess with and who not to mess with. And I never forgot that. And I think it's important.
He just flexed saying Dick Gregory. I think he just flexed again.
But you can say whatever you want, but I'm citing that to make a point. His point, I think, was a good one, which is you have to be careful who you can deal with, and you have to be careful who not to deal with.
I'm with you, Defraud, and I don't play that game. Like, I honestly, I am a proud father and husband. You F with anybody in that circle, I'm probably better at what you're doing than you think I am. And
that's what
probably can guarantee I'll hurt you a lot more than you can hurt me. But I don't want to play that game. I'd rather not. So if I'm in that space, somebody pull me in. You know what I mean?
And it's one of those things where Al, I hate to cut you off from earlier, Al, but I'm just saying, man, when you say equal reaction, somebody said something about your curtains in the background and said that your house looks bummy and you look poor or something like that does not equate calling their profession and telling them about what this person is doing and trying to physically hurt them on the job or, hurt their career. That stuff, it ain't equal. Now, if somebody is trying to slander you and ruin your life and you in turn do the same back to them, that I understand. Like the salacious slander that went against Lennon Honor. If he had took it to that level where he took it to like outside of here and went on to the law and stuff like that, I understand it at that level. When this person is trying to maliciously hurt you, but over jokes and over people saying that your house looks bummy, and I'm not talking about doxing. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about they just said they noticed something in your background and said, hey, man, is that a 1940s air conditioner? What you doing with that? Like, somebody saying something like that, and you go crazy on them like that, and you start putting all kinds of stuff out there on them, and you try to go into their leadership, or you try to go to like their job and superintendent and stuff like that, that is not equal. But I had to understand that I'm not playing in a sector where people are about equivalency. They don't care about equal. They kind of just like go straight to the gambit. They go straight for gusto. And I understand like what you said with Dick Gregory, you got to understand who you can mess with and who you can't. And I had to understand and come to terms with that. So I changed the way that I was behaving in these YouTube streets accordingly to that. So
Well,
that way I didn't have to
unfortunately, a
deal with
lot of people
that.
don't know who they
Well, let
talking to or who they messing with. So
right. Well, but
you're
here's
already
the point
shooting
that
in
I
the dark
made.
when you feel like you can say and do
Right.
things in the background. I mean, if you're talking on the mic, who cares? I mean, you can call me whatever you want to call me, but that personal level is like, don't do it. Everybody's not going to just sit back and take that, man.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
and
my
everybody's
point.
not going to
Let
drop a
me just
lawsuit
use
on you
another.
and just be like, oh, it's okay. I'm going to leave the lawsuit alone. I might pursue that until the very end.
Yep.
I will take it
Yep.
to the right person and I will see it my day in court with you face to face. So you can then dox me and know exactly who I am. Because I don't
Yep.
play it with nobody. I'm not trying to sit around and be like, oh, well, I'm going to drop this lawsuit on him. And then all of a sudden, a couple of weeks later, we don't hear about it anymore or it's not going on anymore. No, I will see you in court. I swear to you. On everything I love, you come after me and you start messing with me on that kind of level. We are going to court. You will see me in person. Wear your best suit, wear your best dress, whatever you got. I'm coming for you. Like, I swear, I'm not playing. And then, like, if you try to show up in my house, well, I ain't gonna say, but I'll let you know something. Remember, keep in mind.
I think defrauding is clapping his hands as he's talking because
I
I can
absolutely
feel it.
am. I get real heated about stuff like this because people don't know who they messing with and who they playing with online. You don't know anybody that you're talking to, anybody that you're doing anything with. I guarantee if you seen me in real life and you saw what I was about and saw what kind of person I was, you wouldn't mess with me, you wouldn't talk to me, you'd probably cross the street when you see me coming, I swear. Like, I am not one of those guys. Like, so when it comes down to like showing up at people's houses and, oh man, I'm outside, oh my goodness. Like, hey man, you better call an ambulance, better call a hearse, you better call the cops, because man, it's about to get crazy.
Yep.
Let you be outside. All right. Like, I'm
Yep.
telling you,
Well,
stop it. Don't play with me like that.
well, here's the thing. Let me just go back to let me take equal out of the physics example I used and just say what I noted before. For every action, there is a reaction. And so the point for me, it's true, there aren't always equal reactions in the sector. But I don't think
Absolutely
people
not.
are going to authorities and disagreeing because somebody didn't like the curtains in their room or the way their
No,
bathroom looked
what we
or
call
their
that out
living
on,
room.
well, what it's been called on these YouTube streets is people getting butthurt when they get upset because of
Right.
I hate the fact that sometimes it's just a disagreement, right? Like, so
Yeah,
what, you disagree?
but the point
Like,
is this.
does that mean you got to call somebody's job? Does that mean, like, that is
Yeah,
just
but
goofy to me?
It's
but I
egregious. It's
don't think
way beyond the
that
lines.
precisely is going on. What I think is going on are the serious efforts, some degree of verbal attack and slander, as we've noted. But here's the point. The point that I made is what you put out in terms of negative energy and negative behavior is what you will receive. This is what a lot of people in the sector don't get. They think they can put out negative energy and negative behavior and not receive any recompense, any reaction, any form of recompense, any form of retaliation against it. And that's just not how it works. It's never how it works in the so-called offline world. In my experience, if you say the wrong thing to the wrong people, you'll be dealt with. That's just the way it goes. You see it not only when you're in school, you see it in terms of jobs, you see it in terms of careers, you see it in general. And what I find interesting to me about the sector is that people seem to think because they're on YouTube that the rules don't apply. Well, looks like when you got visited by the cops, looks like when you got visited by the FBI, looks like when you had that lawsuit and that complaint to your school district or to your employer, that you learn that there are repercussions, that there are reactions. And so my point is, if you have nothing to worry about, if you know how to behave properly, like I don't worry about those things. I don't have to. I'm retired. I don't have a career that I have to worry about. I don't have the issues that would put me in that position. But also, my behavior is not engaging people in that way. I understand. I have certain standards and a certain code of conduct that I have. So I will react to people who say things that are slanderous and untrue. And they will, and of course, they will get put in place, as I would call it.
So
But
the
beyond
last
that,
time, the last time I was on a panel with Stefan, I guess he was asking. I think Binary was trolling him when he was like, "Oh, Identity wants you off the internet or off YouTube, whatever." I never said I wanted him off YouTube, but I have no problem telling him, as I did before, you cannot get mad if the level that you reached to destroy someone else's personal life, even if it wasn't intentionally, you knew what you were doing. You knew what you were saying. You cannot get mad if someone feels like you don't even deserve a seat at the table. You can't get mad at that because that's the door you opened. Now,
Right.
if you did it for likes, subscribes, and subs, hey, I hope it was worth it because you're probably going to hear about this every time somebody just like, hey, wait a minute. Aren't you the
Every time.
guy that did this, this, and this? Like, that's not, I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon because that was extremely blatant. Like, it was just it wasn't just attacking someone, it was attacking everything about him. And you can hate Lenin, you can love whatever the case. Forget the feelings that anyone has of Lenin. On the general sense of things, that was disgusting, man. So don't get mad if it follows you. That's all I said.
Right. Well, what
And then
I
with
said
the
before
money
about
aspect,
Steven's situation is that the internet never forgets. Because he noted, well, that was so long ago. Nope, the internet never forgets. So if you do something that's out of bounds or wrong or incorrect, the internet never forgets.
Yeah,
Big man knows that
and it
lesson very
shouldn't.
well.
It shouldn't because we're leaving breadcrumbs whether we like it or not. We're leaving our footprint on these things. And I
another
might say
thing is
something now that
people
I might
can't.
disagree
Yeah.
with later in I may say something now that I may disagree with 5 years from now, but that's okay.
Right.
Because it's
Right.
growth. I'm not everything that I'm going to be today.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'm growing. I'm learning. That's probably going to happen till the day I die. But I definitely feel like this is the reason why I want to be careful of. Am I saying this for shock value or am I saying this because I really feel this? And I lean more towards the latter. I'm not. I like subs and likes and all. That's cool. But I'd rather get the point across of what I'm thinking and feeling because I think it's more genuine. And then whatever response I get, it just means more to me because it's not a character. You know what I mean? So I'm sorry, defrauding. You had something.
and I was just gonna say, them super chats that's what it was back then. Super chats did something to people. Like people saw them super chats coming in and they saw all that money hit the screen. You had people flip out a calculator and start adding it up. I couldn't help but to laugh when I saw somebody actually bring up the
Pocket Watch
statistics.
Petey.
Yeah, Pocket Watch P, man, that was some funny stuff. Man, when I saw that, I was like, wow, you sat there through the whole 2-hour live and you've been typing in numbers to see how much this man was making. Oh, hell no. I done seen it all, man. You've been hating on this dude the whole time. You steaming through your ears talking about, oh man, I hate this guy. $44, $55. Like, you're just sitting there typing it all in and you're hitting equal every time. Like, oh, I hate this motherfucker. And then, you're just sitting there, you're adding up this money and at the right, you get up to $200-$300 and you're like, man, he made $200 or $300 in one day, and then he did it the next day, and then the next day, and man, then you got to get up there and you hate on top of it, talking about some, yeah, they took 30% though. But
yeah, when you actually got to sit there and calculate the man's taxes on his money, you are in too deep, man. You are in way too deep.
The hate is real. The hate is too real.
Right. But here's the last point about Steven that I wanted to bring up. And that is, I think the reason he got the reaction he did in the sector is a fundamental lesson I think even most people would agree with, which is you can't trust a liar. Lying is one thing. Most people lie at some point. Even honest people lie at least once. But being a liar is a wholly different matter. And from what I understand of Steven and what he's done, this man, didn't just lie. He's a liar. A liar that basically, his lie was basically a weapon of destruction aimed at another person's family, and relationship. And so people looking at that can't really trust someone like that, because they're going to say, if you can go and make that up and just blatantly lie and try to destroy this guy's life, what are you going to do to me? What are you going to do to the next content creator or the next person? You can't trust such a person. So I think that's, I mean, even in the sector, say what you want about what people's motivations and behaviors are. At least they understand that. They get that, hey, that's not going to work for me. So you have to kind of give the side eye to such a person. I think that's the major reason why people reacted the way they did to Stephen. Because you can't trust a liar at all.
Yeah, I just,
ever.
I am not saying something that I wouldn't say to him directly. I have no, I don't hate the guy. I don't hate anybody, but I definitely don't disagree. I don't agree with just how he moved and what he,
it was disgusting.
What he agreed to do. And even if it was someone who's in the background, even if it was coerced, I don't care. The fact is, we're all grown adults here. We kind of know what is right, what's right from wrong, what's, good and bad. Like there's a general level that I'm going to give to that person as saying, this was off. This was off. And yet and still, today it's complaining about why people keep bringing this up. I wouldn't see how they wouldn't. I just don't see it.
And one of the things that Shaka Moran noted was, in his view, that he didn't need to lie to deal with someone and attack them. I may not agree with, you can disagree with people attacking, some attacks people make, but I agree with him on that. You can go up against somebody and criticize them and go up against them, but also you do it on the facts. You do it on the evidence. You do it on the stats. You do it on the materials. You're on surer ground, although I'm not a fan of attack.
Here's an analogy for you, Al. Here's an analogy. So I don't know if you watch a lot of battle rap.
I've seen a little. I'm familiar with it. A little.
In battle rap, typically, you go bar for bar, lyric for lyric, back and forth, back and forth. Usually you just insulting the person back and forth. That's okay. Mm-hmm. The moment somebody tries to go physical, that's when you know that they have nothing left. Like it's like when they hit that wall of realizing, oh shit, this person is better than me, or they're winning, or they're beating me down, and I have no answer. And I look at that with the same eyes that I see someone on YouTube who, and I'll be perfectly honest, I do not agree with a lot of shake and bake stuff. I do not agree with it. Now, what I don't like is the fact that he hides his hand sometimes. He play the woe is me, right? When he wants to. But the weird part is, I thought I was learning how to move on these YouTube streets. And what I did learn was, okay, you're saying all kinds of goofy shit about me, never met me. Guess what? We both can do it. And come to find out, I'm better than you at it. So, and when that was realized, and it's like, I was almost waiting for another level to go like, okay, if he tries to go personal, let me let him know. I'm trying to keep this on YouTube because it's entertainment, right? People like hearing this stuff, seeing this stuff, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I'll play in the mud. I'm okay with that. But when you go too far, everybody's not going to stand down in fear. Just letting you know that. It sounds like Defrauding's one of those dudes that you don't want that smoke.
It's funny because the first thing he did was he assesses the situation, he evaluates it. Then the next thing you know, he kicks you off the panel, man. First thing he can do, he kicks you off the panel, kicks you off the show, mutes you, whatever he got to do, because he don't want to deal with you. And I thought it was funny because I was like, the minute I got deleted off his channel, I was like, oh, I guess I won. Guess I out-talked him. he couldn't take the heat. He didn't want to get roasted. So then he went ahead and kicked me.
He definitely likes to run, like he runs his panel a certain way. But it's funny because he'll go on when he was on Star's channel and he was taking like subliminal shots at me. And I was like, I could trash him in the chat, but this is the only place on the internet that I have a wrench. So you're gonna watch what the hell you talking. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna swing this bad boy. And
I ain't gonna lie.
I
I've
timed
done
him
that
out.
to him. I ain't gonna lie, I've
And
done it.
yeah, because he will block you. And look, I'm telling you, what I got blocked for is ridiculous. It was so ridiculous. But then when I actually timed him out, I think Scarlett was coming after me, like, "Yo, why are you all messed up about it?" I'm like, you have no idea how this dude moves in the background on his, like how he moves with certain people on his channel. I didn't block him because it's not my channel. I didn't want to block him from Star unless Star told me to do it. You know, it's her channel. But, you know, he was taking shots. I'm like, you know what? It's time he understands. Like, dude, you can't just say and do anything you want and then show up like, hey, how's it going, guys? What?
And when he
Well,
blocked
sorry,
me, I
who are
was like,
you?
what a baby. How soft
Yeah.
can you
But who
be?
are you referring to? I'm sorry, who are
What's
you
that?
referring to?
Shake and
I
bake.
kind of missed it. Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shake and bake.
What a
You know,
baby, man. I ain't
he
never
likes when
seen
you
nothing
say
like
his name, so that's why I don't say it.
Oh, I see. All
Yeah,
right,
he loves
I
when you say his
understand.
name because it gives him, I guess,
I don't have
shine.
any issue. I don't have any issue with the guy. I actually think that, I'll be blunt. At least he makes an effort with his channel, and I think he tries to put content on there that's, you know, trying to be educational, and he tries to do
Yeah, but
stuff
I think what
outside
bothers
of
him is that
the
some of that content is not getting the traction that
it isn't.
that if he would get have you noticed that when he uses like Flacco's name or Lennon's name or Umar's name, he knows that that's where that traction is. So he
Yeah.
keeps coming back to it. He keeps coming back
Right.
to it.
But
And I think sometimes
here's
he
the
gets drunk with it because he starts losing his identity of himself. Like, dude, this is not, I understand you're trying to get views and subs and likes, but then what? You know, I only have 147 subs. I think I'm only at 147, not a lot. But when I look at the people seeing my stuff and I look at all the support I'm getting on just people checking me out, maybe not live, but I get a lot of traction on the back end on the replay. And I look at that and I'm like, how the hell am I getting better numbers for somebody who has like 500, at least 500 subs? How am I getting better numbers than that guy as far
Yeah.
as like video for
Right.
video? And I'm not, look, this whole sector stuff is probably like 80% of this show. You know what I mean? Like it's not the bulk of it because I didn't want it to be the bulk of it. I want it to be more genuine,
Right.
more like
But
as
my
Max would
point
say,
is,
barbershop, you know, conversations. That's what I
here's my
wanted.
point.
I just
My
didn't want to call it
point.
Right.
barbershop.
Here's my point
Go
about
ahead, Al.
him. Here's my point about him. My point about him is, at first I saw what he was doing within the sector, and I think, you know, I didn't care for some of it. But what I see with his channel now is I think it is a good mix of the sector and other things. I think it's unfortunate that the tech stuff and the other stuff that he does doesn't get viewed as much. Because when I looked at his channel, I said, okay, here's a guy who's making an effort to produce some decent content. It may not be people's fancy, it may not be people's up their alley, but he's making an effort to do something outside of the sector. And I think it's always good to do stuff. I'm not a content creator, as everyone knows, but I think it's always good not to do stuff that's all sector, that you can have a mix, and if you can make it work. And yeah, sector stuff does get more views than the educational stuff. But I've come to a point, and this may surprise some people, where I have a degree of respect for what he's trying to do. I respect what he's trying to do with his channel.
I cash apped the guy when I first got on his panel because I thought that's the lane he was going. Like I really thought, like, yeah, okay, young dude trying to, you know, he's all into the chemet, trying to, you know, do this, and this. But then on the next live, I heard him talking about nigga this, nigga that, F that B, this, that. I'm like, what the hell? How is this jive with the stuff you were talking about, chemet and bringing up your people? And it didn't make sense to me. And
he understands he's got to mix it up. That's what I'm saying. And I don't blame people for doing that with their channels. I understand. He knows he's got to bring in people to watch. That's why he's doing these Flacco reveals and these exposés, and those are working to a good extent. And my point is, I've gone to a point where I see what he's trying to do with his channel, and I respect what he's trying to do, because I don't see a lot of people doing that with their channels.
Yeah, but unfortunately, he tells
channel.
people how much they're not shit because they don't have what he has, and then that's another level. That's like, dude, I thought you were all about bringing your people up. Like, why are you talking to people, talking down to people like that?
Yeah, and then the other thing is Al, you have to think about it. That's not how this game works. Like that whole mixing it up thing, like make a change, and other people have come to you before and have come on these panels and told people how the game works. There's an algorithm. And with that algorithm, you have to pretty much typecast the type of material that you're putting out, because people are drawn to those hashtags, or drawn to those different kinds of topics that you're talking about. They try to put you in a particular lane. If you're doing things where they're too far extremes and they don't mix at all, and you don't even mix it in really well, then at that particular point in time, you're not going to get the same kind of traction or the same kind of impact. And that's why you need to focus on creating a better product. Like, a lot of people have forgotten that it's also about the product. It's about the production. It's about the editing. Like certain things that I see with Identity Withheld, he came into the game. He's got the fire thing in the beginning with the intro. He's working on quality. Your quality assurance is the most important part of any product. If you're giving a product or a service, you have to remember that the quality of the product or service that you're giving, that's what draws people in. It's not so much about the content of, oh, this is salacious or this is some scandalous stuff, and then the next minute I'm doing educational stuff. It's not about that kind of thing. It's about putting out one particular kind of product and doing that well. Once you get that, then you can mix it up and go to another product. Hey, we don't just sell this product, we also sell that product. But I also think that you should separate those two channels, because they deal with two different things. Because if this is dealing with this over here, like say for instance, I'm gonna do a gaming thing, right? But on the other flip side of doing the gaming thing, I'm gonna go over here and tell people about graphic design. These things are so far different that I'm not going to get any cohesive kind of flow with that. I might as well separate the channel. And what I can do is I can put a link in the description saying, hey, if you like my gaming content, come check me out over here on the graphic thing, and vice versa. And that's the game of the internet. That's how the social media stuff works. You need to go look at people who have these million subscribers, who have those 5 million and 6 million. Look at how they do it. They do one thing, and they do that one thing well, and they diversify themselves. So if he's gonna do the woke conscious energy, Kemet thing, you need to think about making a good product and who you're competing with. You're competing with people like Young Pharaoh and stuff like that. You're competing in those lanes. So what you need to do is you need to go on Sayonetta. You need to go talk to Brother Polite. You need to go talk to people that's in that lane. Go show up, become a part of the debates. That lane is real simple how to get on. I've seen it 1,000 times. You need to go over there, talk to those people, get in debates, win against them, and then get that fan base. And that's how you do it, instead of being over here beefing with people over some Lennon Honor stuff.
Now,
that ain't got nothing to do with Kemet.
Am I wrong for saying?
Point that I want to make.
What about? Am I wrong for saying that he doesn't believe in himself?
I don't think he does either, because if he did, I think he'd be over there battling against Sayonetta, Brother Polite, and Young Pharaoh, and having debates with them on what he believes in. That's what I think.
That's what I was thinking myself, because I'm trying to understand the moves he's making, and I know he loves numbers. He loves, the way he was watching Lennon's numbers, to where he's saying, oh, he only has 800 people in the chat. He's losing his channel. I'm like, dude, 800 people watching at one time, and you're telling me he's losing? So what? He had 1,200, 2 weeks ago. So what? 800 is a lot of people, dude. And I think last week when he did the Umar stuff, he hit 1,800 people. Didn't you do a live about him losing his channel and it's going down? Didn't you celebrate that? And now he's getting 1,800 people in a chat, dude.
You bought him business.
Makes no sense. Right.
If anything, people started doubling down.
Here's the point I'm trying to make. I'm somebody who was critical early on because I didn't like some of the attacks and I didn't like some of the things that were going on with him. But the point I'm trying to make now is what I see is he's at least making an interesting effort with his channel to diversify. And that I respect. I don't have to agree with him on everything.
I don't know if it's I don't know if he's diversifying.
Well,
I think it's more he's following the numbers.
I'm going by what I see. And what I see is an interesting effort to diversify. Is it entirely working? Probably not. But what I see going on with the channel is at least interesting to me. Not everything, but some of it. And it's easy to come in the sector and come in YouTube and always criticize and bash and attack and go after people. But there are times when, I try to be a fair person, and I try to extend credit to people when they do things that I find interesting. And in regards to his channel, say what you want about the man and his personality, but in regards to his channel, I find some of his stuff interesting. Not necessarily to you, but overall from a perspective. And I think that it's fair to give him credit for that. It doesn't always have to be about, I agree with all his approaches and I agree with everything he's done. But I see at least somebody doing something interesting.
I'm not saying that, Al. I'm saying more so, I feel like his direction is what it is. And I feel like when he deviates from what I think he wants to do, it's to bring people back in. Like he'll lose people doing what he wants to do, but then when he gets to a point where I need more people back, here comes some, Lennon Honor sleeping with his shoes. Like it's like some goofy shit.
Right.
And you're like, oh,
I think
boy.
that's intentional. That's my point.
I know. I feel like he's chasing the numbers.
It's a gimmick.
And in my opinion, I mean, and again, I've only been doing this a couple months now, but I'm so adamant about just like I want it to be what I want it to. I want to bring people to me, right? I don't want to spend so much time chasing what somebody else wants. Like then I don't want this to feel like a job. Like I love just talking to people, so that's what I want to keep it as. And this is not for everybody. I get it. That's okay. But if you want to have a conversation about whatever else, we could laugh, joke, smile, come rock with me. You know what I mean? And it's not that I'm trying to stay in this lane. It's just what I do anyway. It's not even trying to stay in it. It's just the lane I've been in. So that's even better for me because I don't have to think about it as much. It's just what it's going to be. And that's my take on it. So.
And then once again, Al, it's kind of like you understand how marketing works when you're trying to sell a product or a service. You have to think about it like this. When R.L. Stein or any of these kinds of people came along and they had their own thoughts, personalities and stuff like that, right? But they didn't put their thoughts or their personalities or their bad qualities out there first. What they did was they put out their art, they put out their work, they put out their stories. And once those got out there and got into people's hands, people fell in love with it and decided that they like this product. They fall in love with the offer. They fall in love with the community that person creates. And then from there, if they wanted to say something about their crazy opinions or crazy beliefs that everybody's not going to rock with, that's when they did it, after the people already bought the product, after the people already got immersed in the product. But the thing is again, some of them know better. They'll never tell you what they think about politics or what they think about this or what they think about that because it gets in the way of the money. So therefore, they keep it on the mission. They keep it on what it is that they're trying to do. If they're trying to spread horror to every corner of the world, they're not going to sit over here and say, I feel this particular way about politics. That's going to cut them off from the money. That's going to cut them off from putting their artwork or putting their books out in other places. And if a guy tells me that he's so smart and he's so intelligent and that he's so far above all these 40 and 50-year-old men, this is the kind of thing I expect to see from him. I expect him to know that already, to know that your product is supposed to be separate from your personality and the character that you create. And that is the most important thing, is that you're trying to sell somebody something, get them to buy it. And then afterwards, you can go crazy and you can start calling people's jobs and start dancing, talking about how you about to lose your job. You can start doing that after people are already rocking with you. But you can't do that when you ain't got the people sold yet. Because now all of a sudden, what am I seeing? What am I looking at? This guy has a product, but hey, what? they, they're not gonna rock with you after seeing some stuff like that. They're automatically gonna write you off and say, "Nah, man, I can't mess with this guy," and that got in the way of the money. And I feel like he could have been successful had he just stuck to the chemist stuff. Had he just stuck to the chemist stuff after he got the initial following from the Lennon Honor. When he first detracted and went away from that, he had a lot of people in the chat. He had a lot of people watching from all walks of life. He could have easily bridged out of that and continued to talk about the chemist stuff, continued to build himself up, going on to panels where people want to hear that kind of thing. And he could have built himself up right then in that moment. But what he decided to do was stay in one place, linger on it, take things personal, like him getting the copyright strike, and then he went off the deep end. Everything went to shit.
Yeah, he was chasing those numbers, man. He saw
that
how many
like
people responded to that.
Him. Yeah.
You said it sounds like a conversation I should have with him, man. He blocked me.
Oh, but I'm saying that would be applicable to him. I mean, you're making some points that are interesting, but that sounds more like a conversation with him than anyone else. But
that's for any content creator. That's what it is. That's what this is when you're going on here. You're selling a product. Any content creator, that includes binary code, identity, that includes Max V, that includes everybody. You are trying to get into a lane as to where you're an influencer.
Yeah.
You see how people came at, not people, but there were a couple characters on our YouTube in this sector that came at Max like, yo, are you going to keep doing Umar stuff? Like, there was a plea for him to stop doing Umar stuff. And it's like, wait a minute. Like, this is what he reports. He does what he does. Now, if the news isn't good because the source is effed up to begin with, then why are you blaming him if he's reporting it? You know, like, a lot of times he's just telling you, like, yo, this is what's happening. You said you were going to get HVAC. Where's the HVAC? Like, when he's doing those videos, they're funny, but they're serious. That's a legitimate question. Now, when you get people asking you to stop doing your content, what? Because it's disparaging your people? Like, well, then tell him to get his shit together then. Like, I'm not deliberately just talking shit about the guy. You know, if there was nothing to talk about, then there would be nothing to talk about. So that's why I'm not a fan of anyone just, telling you what you should do with your. No, that's not how this works.
Again, that goes to the point that I brought up earlier, which is, one, as a guest on panels, I don't ever tell a content creator what to put on his channel and what not. One, because I have no interest in that. Two, I don't understand why anyone else would have any interest in that, because that doesn't make sense to me. Partly because I'm not a content creator, but I'm saying my business, and then maybe go back and then we'll leave. That's it. And it strikes me as just plain rude and disrespectful for people, whether they're Muslim or anyone else, to try to influence or manipulate content creators with money or anything else, or with intimidation or whatever. I just think that's just basic disrespect and basic bad manners. And I do believe in manners. I absolutely do. But I think when we talk about content creators and we talk about content, I think part of it is how your content is judged by people. You know, people are entitled to have their opinions about your content. But what they can't do is demand content from you as a content creator. They don't have any power over that. And that was one of the things I found wrong about Muslim, was that he instead, if he had an issue with me, why he didn't go to me or go on a panel elsewhere and deal with it, instead of going to content creators and saying, if X is on a panel, I won't give you money, as if he controls them. He manipulates them. He tells them what to do.
Again, I don't know if he was trolling or not. If he's listening, holler at me, Muslim. You know what I mean? I go live every Thursday. So hit me in the comments, something, man. Like, I don't know if you were trolling, but I took that as a serious statement. So, just for the record. So I am almost pushing 4 hours here, gentlemen. I definitely want to go spend some time with the family. So I would appreciate, I appreciate you guys rocking out with me for this long. This is actually pretty cool. As Binary would say, Al, talk your shit.
All right. I guess just to kind of talk about what's going on, my view has always been when it comes to YouTube and content creators, you got to let the content creators do their thing, create their content, and move in the position they are. Give them credit when you like something that's positive or good. If you want to put feedback on something that isn't, but you can't tell them what to do or try to control them in some way, financially, economically, fiscally, what have you. I think that's wrong. And I think some who is honest, respect the content creator. That's what I've always done. And what I'll continue to do while I'm here on YouTube and on panels. So that's what I think.
So,
and with that,
Al, do you have anything? Do you have any?
Sure.
Do you have a channel? Are you starting a channel?
Oh.
You don't have any interest.
My starting channel? No. For some strange reason, maybe it was because of the Photon interview. A couple people had asked me, and I have no interest in starting a channel, primarily because of what I see in the sector. Copyright strikes.
Forget the sector, man. Just do what you do. You don't have to be here.
No, I mean, but I look at it from the point of YouTube. I never had any interest in a YouTube channel. It just never was my interest. I didn't come into YouTube.
Yeah, I was gonna put it in the chat, but since you don't have one, sorry.
No, I don't.
Okay, cool. I appreciate you being here, man. I
appreciate being here. We had a good discussion, and I appreciate both your perspective and the frauding charlatans' perceptions and their statements. And with that, I bid both of you gentlemen adieu.
All right.
Catch you later, Al.
Catch you later, Al. Yeah. Did you want me to put your Cash App or something up? I don't know. What you want to do? What you want to do?
So yeah, my Cash App is just $ defraud and charlatans, just as it's spelled. You could check me out on Tales of the Grime Night, or I'm sorry, Tales from the Grime Night. And I just wanted to say, originally, I wasn't too interested in this YouTube thing either originally. It kind of just came to me before I had my first child. I started drawing, and I saw that a lot of people was posting their artwork to Instagram. And it kind of got really interesting to me because I was like, well, these people aren't monetized. They're not getting a whole bunch of money for this, but some of these artists are like absolutely phenomenal. So I was like, if they could have that much confidence in themselves and they could try to put together that good of a product, and they didn't start off the greatest, all of them started off with a rough patch. I was like, well, why don't I believe in myself like that? Why do I have all these ideas pent up in my head of good movies and good books and good stories and good, anything? And I'm not putting it out there into the world. And why am I not doing anything with talent that some of my professors came to me and told me I had? And a lot of it was because of fear. So very fitting. That's what got me super interested in horrors, because I have my own kind of fear, and a lot of us have it. So I stepped out on a limb, created my channel about a year and some months ago, and I wasn't caring too much about the numbers. None of that made any sense to me. It was all about getting the idea out there, getting the artwork out there, growing as a person, growing as a writer, because I was like, a lot of my first early writings was not extremely good. There was a lot of errors in it. There's a lot of syntax problems. So over time, I got better and better. And then recently, I've been putting out a way better product than what I was putting out a year ago in some months. And then when I tried to diversify and branch out into other stuff, I just noticed that, when dealing with other artists, it gets difficult. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. There's a lot of learning curves. Learning how to use the software, especially with drawing. There's a difference in between drawing on paper or drawing on an iPad screen. It's very different. So there's a lot of learning curves that I go through. So for anybody, because somebody was sitting back and listening to me talk earlier, and if he knows all this, why he not doing that with his YouTube channel or his thing. And the reason is because the type of product that I'm trying to put out, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of know-how. It takes a lot of learning curve woes that I have to go through. And a lot of these things I go through in private, so that way when the product comes out, it's not as horrendous as what my early writings were. And I learned that, everything takes time, and understanding how to use a program is super important. So I hope that when things start dropping on my different YouTube channels, that it's really professional looking and that it's nice quality. So that's all I
You'll
had to
get
say.
there, bro. You'll get there.
Yeah.
Even though Umar doesn't understand the power of starting small, you got to start somewhere, man. You got to just at least get your feet going, man.
Right. You got to get into those steps of it's incremental success. You're not going to get it all in one day. Take your time. Don't rush it.
Right.
Become public when you have something that's worth investing in. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. That's where I stand with this whole, what I'm bringing right now, man. It took me a minute to realize what it is. Like,
yeah,
I was kind of moving in this space anyway, and it just didn't have its own name. It didn't have, it wasn't what it is now. So I'm super proud of myself even just starting one, because I kept telling myself I wouldn't. And the only thing was holding me back mainly was time. I just didn't have the time. And I saw what Binary was doing, and I wanted to at least be on that level of, let me give it some effort. I'm going to try, because I saw what he was doing is different. It's like he's putting time in, and now I see why Make a Change is so pissed off about a thumbnail. Do you know how long it took me to make that damn thumbnail? Like, this is not like something you just copy and paste, man. It's some legwork put into this, man. I'm thinking about these topics, and usually I come up with it by the time Tuesday hits, Monday or Tuesday. But between now, after this show ends, and Monday morning, I usually just let my mind not think about this stuff, because I want it to be more organic. I'm trying to do something different because it's kind of what I'm bringing anyway. So, do your thing, man. I understand it may seem like it's a slow grind. That's how it usually starts with anything. You think Walmart had 10 million stores the first day? Like, that's not how this works. So I know you dropped off, but I know you're still listening, man. I did put your Cash App in the chat. Thanks for rocking again, Al. Unadulterated, of course, defrauding charlatans. Thanks for coming up, man. I appreciate just hanging out with me. Another Thursday afternoon, night. Oh, wait, where are you? I forgot where you were. Oh, I remember, but I'm not going to say it. Yeah, I don't know if you're going to come back up or not, but so I'm going to close out. Appreciate everybody rocking with me. Please hit the like button, share, and if you haven't subscribed, hit that notification, please. This is the more people that get involved with this, the better I think the conversations will go, the different perspectives we bring, all that. I want all of it. I want to have it. I want to sit down, and I want to just literally have it like we're on my living room couch, just talking about everything, whatever it is. I know we don't know each other. I know I'm not necessarily anybody's friend out there, but I know there's some things that I say that feels a little more familiar, than someone just, rambling on about Kemet curtains or something goofy. Like, I'm not taking shots at Kemet. It's just the Kemet curtain line is funny to me. Again, thanks for rocking with me, everybody. Hopefully you learned something. I do have mods, but I don't think they really need to flex that much, because I don't have a lot of goofy stuff going on in the chat, other than when Al's on and people want to have some crazy words for him. So hit that like, share, subscribe, do what you got to do, man. I will holler at everybody next week, and thank you for rocking with your boy. Peace.
The Negro still is not free. We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. we are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Manifest how great you are. Dream about your greatness.
Come hell or high water, I'm going after my
Greatness, greatness. Greatness, 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 greatness.
Greatness.
How can I fake this humbly gracious to have this greatness, greatness?
Greatness.
Every time I wake, this greatness takes this black man higher places.
Greatness.
Melanated magic strapped to my back with the fact I deserve higher praises.
Greatness.
Based on my race. Last place is the only status.
Greatness.
Placed in the basement with no way out. What's the basis?
Greatness.
Look around. All I see are familiar faces with that greatness gazes. Make me wonder what this baseless, tasteless trace of races.
Greatness.
Pointless to think you can keep me down and back in cages.
Greatness.
Shackle minds like gap teeth with the rubber band embraces.
Greatness.
Breaking chains every day that oppress my people for ages.
Greatness.
Faceless acts of rages.
Greatness.
Because of what my race is.
Greatness.
I'm gonna say this price is way too high. Who's gonna pay this? Conversations of reparations ain't even enough to erase this.
Greatness.
Can't get enough of us. We're on your favorite playlist.
Greatness.
But you play us out. Just comply and fucking take this.
Greatness.
I now see my greatness and I know you really hate this.
Greatness.
You can't debate this. I define what my integration is.
Greatness.
Is this a true test from God? Then I'm gonna ace this.
Greatness.
Is this God within me? I'm not gonna waste this.
Greatness.
Every day the media portray cop car chases of people with the same faces, which is nothing but misguided greatness. Driving aimless and hungry, not knowing death is what that taste is.
Greatness.
Gripping tight on the wheel. Jesus, take this.
Greatness.
Gripping hard on that steel, death or jail is what my fate is.
Greatness.
Survival by any means is the meal. Don't forsake this.
Greatness.
There should be more for us. Life can play tricks.
Greatness.
Where's our Morpheus? We're stuck in a matrix.
Greatness.
Reflections of our Savior has been blurred by all this fake shit.
Greatness.
Looking to the sky for hope is done or quite pervasive.
Greatness.
Killing those who find the knowledge quite persuasive.
Greatness.
Once I'm labeled as abrasive, soon to follow evasive.
Greatness.
Savage is what we're told the angry black man is laced with.
Greatness.
Change the context, change the narrative with what we're graced with.
Greatness.
Pop that chain of mental restraint and fly like we are weightless.
Greatness.
Mother Nature has the key. Please open the gate, man.
Greatness.
I'm here to claim my throne. Don't step on my cake, man.
Greatness.
Black Panther to the bone. No need to rate this.
Greatness.
Greatness, greatness. Greatness, 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 greatness. Make sure you get to take this and loop back for all the late kids.
Greatness.
All the boys and girls who don't think that their lives are precious.
Greatness.
All the people who feel circumstances are a death wish.
Greatness.
All the challenge within that we are blessed with should be acknowledged, not demolished by the oppressor.
Greatness.
That's our true resume. Extremely impressive.
Greatness.
I got nothing left to say, but seek incentive
Greatness.
for that greatness. Greatness, 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 greatness. We have a long road ahead to overcome this blatant hatred. We have a long road ahead to overcome this blatant hatred.